Chris is still in the picture. Oh, I'm still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found 3. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
He gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus, he does something!
Looking for a second, he connects it. Oh, and he gets a third as well. Surely he's not going to pull this off. Oh, Caldera, the man, the myth, the beast.
Zywoo, no help really, but he's still hitting shots. He's already got 3. And 5. And oh my God, Zywoo! Unbelievable!
By the Numbers has returned, but it's not the return of By the Numbers, it's the revenge of By the Numbers. We are back for our 3rd season here on the new Insight on Esports CSGO channel. Check around, there's some other shows that you might have seen in the past and some forthcoming there. And of course, this show is now sponsored by Esports Bet. The old name was DJ Esports. You might know they worked with me, they're now working with this company. And they right now are running a World's Prediction Series contest that includes the Major, includes MSI, includes basically everything going on right now for however many more days it lasts. This phase of it, it's free to enter. When you make an account, you get given some DJT, which is their token, it's a free to use thing. And basically think of it like a prediction contest. You make a bunch of bets with the DJT, and then if you can rack up enough on the leaderboard, so you get 56, when you get to like 60k, that then unlocks going into the later stage of the tournament where you can play for enormous money, like $300,000 USDT for the winner. And there's a whole bunch of people who will win. And as I say, it covers all of esports. You can cover all these different games and different areas of expertise. So if you want to go and play, sign up on Esports Bet. You get the free DJT up to a limit of 5,000 DJT every day that you log into the site. They will top you up another 1,000, which you can then use to make the bets. You'll see on some of my other shows like Competitive Edge on this channel with Monty, we actually place the bets and we show you how it works and all the odds and all that. Thanks to Esports Bet. If you like to gamble on esports or you're interested in gambling on it, consider Esports Bet.
So yes, after that wonderful ad read from my co-host, it is time to start a new chapter of By the Numbers. This is the revenge, and we're going to be coming in hot to talk about all of the things around the Major, which is still ongoing at the time of recording this. We've just entered into the final 8. But man alive, there was stories before we even got to the Major, the biggest of which was, of course, this ESIC stuff, because they decided they were going to ban some coaches. So just in case anyone missed it or they forgot because they've been caught up with the excitement about the Major, essentially ESIC have been finally delivering, after pressure from CSPPA and other groups, delivering the goods on these coach bug bans, trying to put that to bed. Turns out that my earlier reports about there being, 52 coaches being sanctioned, that was very conservative. Looks like it might be a lot more, but that is for a third-person bug, which apparently could occur at any time. And it looks like that is it is objectively a much milder form of the bug. However, some of the coaches that were due to compete at the Major had used the free roam bug, which is essentially a form of no clip. And of course, they had the static cam bug, which is one that we've already seen people be banned for. Now, on the basis of that, ESIC had decided, in conjunction with Valve and PGL, that because of the greater severity if those bugs were to be abused, any coaches that were guilty of using them or not reporting them when they occurred, they should also miss a major as well. And so they brought 3 punishments forward, and the teams that were affected were Halley from Team Spirit, Peacemaker, who was obviously due to compete with Imperial, yeah, and obviously Zach as well, another Brazilian player, coach rather. So, and he was coaching 9Z.
Yes.
So this blew up, created a huge fucking drama before the Major even begun, because people were alleging that it was unfair, it was disproportionate.
Also, spoiler, 2 of those coaches are Brazilian. Start up the band, guys. It's our favorite number. Is it because we is Brazilian? It's every time with those guys, isn't it, mate? And if you noticed, by the way, they also do this thing. The Zach guy particularly, I hate this. Look, If at the end it's proven you're totally innocent, spoiler, the way they do these investigations, almost certainly not. But okay, let's imagine there was a world where you've been railroaded, dear mates. Then you are totally justified to be righteous indignation. I hate it when people have righteous indignation just because they got caught or because they're trying to, like, they think if they send a mob after E6, somehow it'll help their case. They'll get to play. And then even people were doing that thing, reminds me of that whole story you've done on Hobbit, where what you do is you punish the messenger. You go, you just did this now to fuck them before a major. You specially did it right before they were going to the major so they couldn't replace him. No, he cheated. It just wasn't found in the. You can certainly argue, we're probably going to get into this about E6, how long do the investigations take? But let's be real. They don't think, like with the Hobbit case, what's the alternative? Well, I'll let him compete at the major and then later ban him for cheating. Like, are you fucking kidding me? So I have to say as well, right, one thing about this whole story, and this is one thing I wanted to get into a little bit. So we've had this discussion in the past famously about the Fnatic Olaf boost, right? Mm-hmm. Things like, should it, if it's that good, be something that you have to tell Valve about? Should it have been banned? All the rest of it. And famously, no one ever gets this because it was such a complicated story with so many episodes that came out and even data and context that came out years later. No one really gets that at the end when you resolve that Fnatic bug. It comes down to this. Both teams used a form of that boost that both violated the same actual rule. You can't see these hidden textures, but viewing the hidden textures wasn't actually even the thing that it was for or used for. So essentially, it was just that the rule is if you can see the texture, that's not allowed. So here's my problem with this case. When, as you say, we're talking about like a third person bug or a free roam bug, sometimes that's nothing. Like I've heard there's that guy maybe had it on a knife round or something. Well, obviously that's not going to help you given any comms there, right? But I saw an example of where he had it as a free roam bug and he was just stuck above Mirage B site. Did you see that one? And every fan, because they're a moron, goes, well, they didn't even go to that site. Mate, it's like as the timer's running down, they go to plant the bomb. He can just see there's no one in the B site. Like, obviously, that could be in common information. He's moving around. Here's my problem, basically. Because I've heard it was alluded to. I mean, people might know there was a weird thing that suggested maybe Zonic's involved in this somehow. Because there was other people, big names that didn't get caught. I mean, Malik technically was not caught for this. This wasn't the reason he didn't attend overall, right? Because of these other cases where we sort of know there's someone involved, but they haven't been punished. It hasn't yet been processed. I have a problem because along those lines of what I said about what the standard is, what's the bare minimum for where the threshold gets activated? I sort of feel like unless the bug does nothing, like unless it's you had third person on a pistol, on a knife round, which doesn't matter essentially. If it's at any time in the game, our standard isn't how good is what you got and could it help you cheat. Our standard, as proven by the Rugger, Robban and Gary cases, goes like this. If you don't report anything where you can see something you're not allowed to, that's bannable. That's something. And worst of all, and this is something I hope we're going to get to at some point in this convo, the other thing, because I myself get confused by this, I have a hard time remembering, is that ESIC bans you from all competitions for a set time. Valve separately decides if you're banned from majors and has that demerit system, which is why, bizarrely, some people can be, like Hunden can be unbanned, but Raging can never play a major ever in his career. So because we've set these crazy precedents, the whole topic, I feel like, I don't think there can be consistency on this topic. And I feel really uncomfortable with the fact that I almost do feel like politics and how people keep responding to ESIC is like almost changing whether they're softer or they're harder in what they do. So there's a load we can get into here. There's so much.
Yeah. Well, let's put the Zonic thing to bed.
Yes.
Because obviously Zonic was there with Vitality for what that was worth.
Sure.
Yes, you know.
Might have done him a favour if they said he couldn't go on this one, eh?
Yeah, no. But anyway, he was there with Vitality and Overdrive, the Russian insider, leaked that there was a fourth coach who would be at the major that was going to come out as having used the bug. Now, look, I'll explain it to people. I've explained it a few times on my own.
Do you know as well, by the way, the reason why the public, like we knew this, but we weren't saying because it's like innocent until proved guilty, it hasn't even been publicized. But if people don't know, the story is even hilarious because it's just banter as fuck. The reason people found out it was Zonic is because Moses was on the HLTV podcast. And when they said something like that, he just guessed and said something like, I hope it's Zonic for this reason. And supposedly, because the others knew, like Striker and that, they were just typing in the chat, like, it is Zonic. Like, so it's just classic, I love Jason because every time he goes on that bloody podcast, he always he does something righteous, but he puts his foot in his mouth. Because you remember the last one where he said, I don't think a rogue should even be allowed at this major. And then if people don't know, he was just at that major, like next to the bar and everything. And it's like classic Moses is getting absolutely.
Great to see you, Katie.
I know.
Good to see you.
I love it.
I know. No, so look, and it did turn out that it was going to be Sonic. But here's the thing. So in the way Isik thinks about it is this, and I've seen the video and I've seen the Sonic videos. Okay. And I say videos plural, and I'll explain why. So, right, the third person bug can be used for a very limited way to ascertain information. Crucially, you can obviously swap between your players, and if they're going to certain parts of a map, you can clear corners with it. And Zach, who is so far the ban he got from this major, nothing to do with the third person bug, but he has also used the third person bug. There's two
certainly
videos.
Rich, like what we said earlier about the anti-campaign, isn't it? I know.
Exactly. He had 2 instances of fixed camera bug abuse and 2 instances of third person bug abuse, and he's using them. He's at his desk. You can see his mouse moving. He's looking around. There's absolutely, there's no chance of it being a Rob Hand style situation, and he's clearing corners in the third person bug. Now, with Zonic, what happened with him? He got the third person bug, and what I think the reason he's going to get sanctioned is it had happened to him a couple of times prior to the headshot time that he's going to get banned for, and he'd said each time, "I've got someone ain't right here, someone ain't right." And then one time he was using it. He's not clearing any corners, but he is moving around, and the fact that it's previously on record that he'd had these bugs.
So he's aware of them.
Yes, so he must be aware of them, and he didn't call it out. That's why he's going to get sanctioned. Now, again, remember, E6's entire framework for the banning system is the third-person bug was something that could occur randomly when you connected as a coach, when you joined the server in the online era, for online games only, and it doesn't have a huge potential for abuse. So, and
it's not like when Hunden's asking you to boost him or something. It's like you can't purposely plan. I'm going to use this and trigger it for you. Like, you're just saying it happens randomly to you. You're just in the game and it happens.
What I've heard might be coming down the pipe is like something arbitrary, like a 30-day suspension for everyone who's used it. Which, spoiler. And when I say used it, I shouldn't say used it.
It happened to, or whatever.
It happened to, exactly.
And didn't report it,
Yes. And basically, they don't care whether you've got information or not. It's the fact that when you have a bug, any bug, right, you are supposed to stop, tell an admin, I'm bugged, can we replay that round or whatever? And there's like thousands of instances of people not doing that, spread out across over 100 coaches, including the ones that already got banned in the first dump. So basically, look, it's not favoritism. It's just that there's the vast majority of the coaches that are going to get penalized. It's a third-person bug that probably happened for one round, half a round in some cases. They joined partway through. So, it's for me, what I would have done is I would have sent them all a letter saying, like, look, we want it on record that if you ever encounter a bug again, you're going to adhere to like fair play and and then it's just done with. But they're going to issue something arbitrary like suspension. But I think we can all agree that doesn't warrant missing out on a major, right?
No. Here's the problem. That's my issue is this. It's the divide. There's 2 main problems with this story. These are probably our 2 big topics, I'm guessing. One is the length of time it takes to do this. As people saw, some of this is 2020 stuff, mate. Like, we're in 2022 now. Like, again, if you're the police, like, this is like you cracked the case, but it's a fucking cold case and everyone's dead anyway. It's like, oh, great, okay. Then the other angle is the Valve one. Like, as I say, always the problem when you interface with Valve is, you notice the people who talk to Valve can never give you a clear answer, really, as to what's going to happen, why are they going. It almost feels like it's one of those fucking scenarios where you just go into a shadowy room and then they just say something to you and you come out and you're not allowed to say what they said, but you can sort of, this will be what we will be doing. So my problem is just that I feel like Valve laid the hammer down so hard from their side in the previous one that I don't think they've left any, like I say, to me, the disparity feels crazy. Like, how can you be banned from a million majors and then the other guy's like, just a 30-day suspension, even if it's not quite as bad. Like, that disparity is crazy. That's like, that's the equivalent to us doing like a similar crime, but then I get 10 years and you get a probation immediately. It's like, so I wonder about that part because unfortunately, like, it's going to happen every time that Valve is the one who ultimately decides the major part, right? It's not going to be Isak who gets to decide that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, when it comes to, but the good news is now, and look, there's always going to be teething problems. Do I agree with all the sanctions issued by Isak? No. Do I think they've displayed incompetence in some of their investigations? Yes. Do I think their time frames for resolving these issues are acceptable? No, I don't, right? Like, and trust me, every time we have a conversation, I'm telling them, like, you know, you are eroding your credibility if you don't fix these things. Now, at their conference, which I was meant to attend but couldn't because I had the COVID, they said they're going to have access to 4,000 staff. You're going to see report after report after report coming out. They've said there's going to be another one coming down the pipe very soon once they get the coach bug resolved. Or basically, they're looking to close all their outstanding database, which is kind of juicy. So it's got things in there like the North American match fixing and the Akuma investigation. So intrigued to see where that goes. But anyway, that, you know, for me, the chances are that the people that got banned from this major, it's going to count towards future majors. Might be the case, actually, that these people are only going to have the one demerit, and in which case this was a slap on the wrist. And, you know, listen, and look, to talk about the three that did get banned from the major, they're righteous bans. You know, Peacemaker is on a video. You know, we joked
this was
about
egregious.
we joked about it on the last episode of Return by the Numbers. He's flying around fucking apps. They're spamming. I mean, you know, and look, I've talked to him about it, and he says, "Listen, I didn't give any info. I swear." But
I know he thinks there's more to the case, but the problem is it just looks so bad. And then also, mate, even though we were using it as a meme, because you did say that fucking stupid tweet, now they want your head. Because now you've almost made light of it, you know. Yeah,
but also now the problem you've got is, you know, it essentially makes you look like a liar.
Yes.
You know, whatever the story behind this bug use is. And, you know, that's the most egregious example, you know. It's the one... you know, that's where you essentially have no clip. Now, there are other coaches that have used that who just weren't at the major, and they're going to get fucking wrecked as well. They just weren't at the major because, like you said, timing is the issue. What's worse, right? But stop somebody from going to a major, right? Because, you know, they've got a cheating infraction, and then maybe we haggle down their sentence later, but all the evidence is they're guilty. The evidence is public, by the way. I don't know how anybody can dispute that. Or don't do it, wait until after the major, and then potentially have a cheater win a major. Like, you know, for me, option B is far worse and always will be.
Absolutely.
And because it devalues the whole competition as well, right? So, you know, look, the ones who got hit were righteous bans. I watched all of the videos on stream. We're going to talk a little bit about Team Spirit and Hallie's in a moment. Zach's is also a righteous ban.
Thoughts off from what I saw,
He had a game against the United where he was on Cat on Mirage. Well, no, sorry.
Someone I was talking about. That's what I just described. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's a 17-18 game, and his team has to win to take it to double OT, right? And he is sat there in no camera mode, moving around. He can see who's on B bomb site and when they rotate. He can see when they're on Cat. And people are going, he didn't see anybody, so he didn't get any information. Sometimes not seeing someone is the information. So,
absolutely.
You know, so for me, it's a righteous ban. And keep in mind, he's got 2 third-person bugs where he's also blatantly using it coming down the pipe. Zach was a no-brainer. I think he's going to get a pretty sizable suspension. I also don't know how much I should say, but I heard, let's just be fluffy about it. I heard Peacemaker's looking at over a year. And that's just based on that one infraction, because again, Isak considered the free roam bug to be the worst of the worst. Spoiler, if you're Valens right now, your CS career is probably over, because he's got lots of infractions, many of which were made public by Lewis Mira of Deserto, and the community went clickbait. So,
mate, there's another thing I hear. Like, this does lean into what I said about all the Brazilian coaches. And by the way, here's another detail. Look, if people don't know, on this show, certainly I do banter, but I don't actually, like, I'll never lie. I mean, I'll tell a joke that has a fantasy scenario. Of course, it's a joke. But one thing I think is actually pathetic is the Brazilian fan base are notorious for a victim complex. It's like I said on Twitter, minus Zeus, which famous Brazilian coach can you name who hasn't cheated with these bugs? It's mental. Mate, if this was like this with like the Danish scene, or I mean, it sort of is in Danish, but Swedish, another one, everyone would say that whole scene's cheaters. They'd write them off forever. These guys, not only do they cheat, But then they have the gall to be outraged about it. Because, in this particular case, there's two parts I despise. One was this is so fucking off color to do sort of like a free Zach hashtag from what? His crime.
Yeah.
The consequences of his crime.
Well, so let's talk about
that's wild. Because in that scenario, that implies he's innocent to me. That's why you free him, right?
Like 9Z were like a really cool storyline for me. You know, we talked about him, episode 192. Yep. Go check it out on the other channel. We said how great it was. We said how great it was that, Argentina, the obelisk at Buenos Aires went purple for them to celebrate their achievements. Fantastic. Love underdog teams getting to the major. Love cool storylines like that. Love seeing nations we haven't seen before at a major. The game becoming more global and offsetting the parts of the world we're going to lose, like NA and stuff like this. It shows how vibrant and organic Counter-Strike is. But here's the problem. I can't, in good conscience, I can't fuck with if your immediate response is to go to victimhood.
Yes.
Because yes, I get it. It affects the team. Yes, I get it. This could have been dealt with before. Hell, there's even an argument to say they could have, if he could pull their finger out their
that's
arse,
true.
They could have fucking told them, you're not going to the major in time for them to replace the coach. I'll add though, I've looked into that. I don't even know if you can, like, once you've got your registration in, I don't think you can change your coach. So,
right. Okay.
Anyway, whatever. But what they did was outrageous. The CEO of 9Z went on social media and said Luis Mira had...
I want to bring that up. Yes. Yeah. They're also calling out journalists. And by the way, he is totally accurate with what he said in the right. And they are constantly gaslighting that he is doing this. He specifically, Richard, is doing this to victimize them. I think they even implied he's racist against Brazilians, for fuck's sake.
Yes.
Isn't he from Portugal?
Yes.
They have the tightest connection with your fucking... Like, the whole thing's madness, mate. And the reason I hate it is... we've had the precedent for this. They did this when Dead did all the cheating, and he was guilty. What they do is they only know attack. Essentially, they're like a pit bull. All they can do is attack. That's their mode, and the problem I have is this: they don't just attack because they themselves feel attacked. They do it because, as you can see at this major, this is why I am like the man stood alone. Everyone bends when Brazilians fucking mob you. Everyone just wants it to end, and in fact, now everyone has been taught and incentivized the opposite. Give Brazilians the softest treatment, praise them, apologize to them. Dude, if you predict against them when they're a massive underdog and they win, apologize that they won the game. Like, what are we doing in this scene? We are absolutely, like, between the League of Legends shit with that fucking ultra sub and then now this stuff here, it's like, this is madness, guys. Because I hate that when you use a mob against someone who is the totally righteous messenger.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was really, because Lewis is a quiet guy, you know what I mean? He's not like me and you. We're out there, right? Like, we express our opinions, and we almost, in a way, sort of take a point of pride in not fucking bending the knee, which is stupid, because, we probably should just stay away from the whole thing. You can't win. The only way to win is not to play. But anyway, that's us. That's our brand. Who we are, I guess, at this point. Lewis Mira, on the other hand, is just a good fucking hardworking journalist who steadily improved, worked hard at his craft. He's over there. He's finally been appointed as an editor at Desert, or prestige position. He's churned out tons of good work, and you've got a CEO of a company with a pretty sizable fan base saying you snitched us out to ESIC, and it's predicated on absolutely nothing. I don't even know if Luis Mira has the channels to talk to ESIC in the same way I do, because I know them since they were founded.
Right.
So, maybe ESIC and Lewis have exchanged notes. Maybe Lewis has found out some stuff and sent it to them. But the idea that he's out there snitching on individual coaches, how would he even do that? How would he have the videos? How would he have the evidence? How would he have the channels? Why would he do it? It doesn't even make any sense. So that allegation circulated, and obviously he was getting fucking wrecked on social media.
What even is that? Also, think about it. I love to do this because it's what destroys idiotic points. Take them at their face value, accept their premise, and then explore it. So I'll accept their premise, Richard. So he's snitching by trying to get cheaters banned. By the way, he isn't even doing that. He's reporting it. But they think he's the one. By the way, even if he was doing that, that's not snitching, dickhead. It's only called snitching when, like, I don't think people get this premise right. The only reason snitching is a problem is because the built-in premise is the police are out to get us. They don't care about us. They will oppress us. So even if we do crimes, even if it is a crime, don't snitch to the police because they'll essentially use it as an excuse to victim. That's not even the case in esports, mate.
No.
Facebook has not shown that whatsoever. And you are bang to rights guilty. You're just basically saying like, yeah, but I wouldn't have been fired if you hadn't reported. Not even accurate. Like, but you're just thinking you found the bagman, as it were. Like, oh, I've got him here, guys.
Here's the thing. If they'd done a hashtag like 39Z, I could be even sympathetic to that. But they were specifically requesting our guilty man has to be unbanned. Well, that don't make no sense. No. Like, you know what I mean? And also as well, he hasn't even took the suspension or the ban yet. He was just told that due to the action and the sanctions, you will not be going to the major. And
also, by the way, think of this. You can't ignore this context. It's the Brazilian fan base. Think what they did to Leaf.
Oh, sure.
And you're going to defend cheaters. Because here's the thing I hate. It tears me up when I think about this. You know, when people do that, like they'll attack you over everything you've done and everything immoral and you're a piece of shit. And then they do something and they're just like, so what? Who cares? It's like, this is fucking mental. That can never be the standard. The standard cannot be if you're Brazilian, you're allowed to do anything against anyone else. It'll never be the standard. No matter what fucking all the talent tell you and how they kiss your ass. That can't be how we run a scene. It can't.
No, and you know, look, at the end of the day, like, I mean, you know, it's like I'm mega sympathetic on anyone that's worked hard, and maybe there was an infraction like a few years ago. You've even forgotten about it, assumed you got away with it, and then it's like, you know, future you pays for the sins of past you. Always, you know, never a nice feeling to see that, especially if you've legitimately changed or, you know, whatever it is. But the reality is, everybody wanted ESIC to get all these cheating coaches at the start. That's what the scene wanted. That's what the scene demanded. The big criticism was, why wasn't he doing it quick enough? And then they finally pulled their finger out of their arse ahead of the major, banned the 3 most egregious, you know, examples that are going to be competing at the major, and everyone loses their goddamn mind. Now, also, it wasn't just the Brazilian fans that felt aggrieved with the ESIC decision. You also had, obviously, Team Spirit wasted no time at all. Team Spirit put a statement out, which was, who is the ESIC? The classic. You know, we fucking memed on that when that small Bulgarian team did it.
Yes.
And now Team Spirit fucking did it. And here's the thing. Team Spirit, as I pointed out, which, by the way, loads of people were going, well, they didn't mean who is the ESIC literally. No, but the implication is they have no authority.
Yes.
So I do understand what they mean. It's not a turn of phrase. They are trying to destroy ESIC's credibility, particularly in the CIS region, as if to say, well, we shouldn't have to acquiesce to their authority, right? And that, by the way, is the only reason Overdrive was leaking shit about it. It was a concerted effort. Look, they're coming after our teams, much like we saw, obviously, with the, you know, no one likes Brazilian teams, just some of the most popular teams in the world. What you're talking about? No one stands with us. No one champions. No, we're right there with you. We all love you. What you talking about? Anyway, so you know, Team Spirit had asked ESIC to investigate Akuma in that CIS RMR. They signed the fucking letter.
I love it.
Asking them,
hey, can you go and arrest my neighbour? Knock, knock, I'm here to arrest you. Who are you? You're not the police. You have no jurisdiction over me. What?
Mental. No, but look, so they literally, I'll read you what the letter said. I will read you word for word what the letter said. It said, right, they listed all of the problems with the RMR and then said, considering these faults, we ask that you involve ESIC or any other competent authority, not only to conduct a full investigation into Akuma, but also to lay out protocols to ensure this scenario will not occur again. So a competent authority, signed Team Spirit. And then what they're doing is publicly, when their coach gets wrecked, they're like, no, but who is the ESIC? Why should we listen to the ESIC? Literally in their letter, they were like saying, what has ESIC done for you? It was like, what have the Romans ever done for us? You know what I mean? Well, they did build the aqueducts. Yeah. What has ESIC ever done? Well, you know, they did catch some match fixers and, you know, on multiple occasions, and, you know, they have banned multiple cheaters. Yeah, but besides their direct mandate, Duncan. So at the end of the day, mate, You know, I don't even understand what they were what was going to happen here. Like, because they are pretending they have no authority. Valve sign off on their decisions.
Yes.
ESIC run everything they did around this through Valve. Valve supported it. PGL are not even an ESIC member, but PGL said, because we're doing a major in conjunction with Valve, we will also support any of your findings. And this was done in advance. They told them, ESIC told them, you do realize this could create some negative PR, but this is what we recommend and what we're going to do. And so that trifecta, we're all on board with it. Where's your letter? Who is the Valve? You know, where's your letter? Who is the PGL? You're happy to attend the major. You're happy to take the money. You're happy to have your fucking logo in the stickers. You're happy to be in the game. You're happy to be in the pick'ems. You're happy to go to the major. This is the price. There has to be some. It cannot be the fucking Wild West. It cannot be every now and then Wyatt Earp rolls into town and shoots a few of them, fucks off. We have to build a structure to stop this happening. And yes, there'll be teething problems. Yes, ESIC will get stuff wrong. But if we do not build a framework, esports will always be the corrupt cesspit it is now. We are trying to build a civilization out of chaos. That is what we're trying to do. We're no further forward now, realistically, than we were in 2006. That's the terrifying thing. Despite all the money, despite all the attention, despite all the supposed positive initiatives, when it comes to catching match fixers and catching cheaters and banning them and all agreeing that we're going to do it in conjunction with each other to make our scene better, we're no further forward. We're no further forward. So the team spirit reaction was disappointing. I will also add, by the way, I watched the video. I'm sure you saw the Halley clip. They themselves tweeted it out. He was up here with a fixed camera bug on Mirage Ramp, right? And so just to let you know, people were going, but he didn't see anyone. He got no information. Here's some scenarios that could have happened. Basically, they won the round super easy. No problem. It was when he was coach of Espada. But if the CTs had pushed in on the pistol, he would have seen it and would have been able to call it. If after they got ramp control, someone had done a long flank from B and had come round behind him, he would have seen it. He would have been able to call it. Why would you not just say to an admin, whoa,
yes.
I'm not in the normal mode. We need to redo that round. You gained an advantage.
It's like you said, what people don't get is because it seems counterintuitive if they don't think about it. Since CS is a game of imperfect information because you cannot see the whole map, just a process of elimination, knowing where they can't be, can be a massive boon.
Totally.
And communicated, obviously, to the players even, which, by the way, is itself, remember the original thing everyone hated about the other coach bug? The idea you don't just use it, you tell the players. So
at the end of the day, I mean, all of that drama when we went into the major, all the people calling for like E6 disbandment, very popular, by the way, in CIS. There was a lot of people saying that we must disband E6 if it's going to be fair. Just so everybody knows, their statement said it is going to impact 134 people overall. That's how widespread the whole fucking thing was. So at the end of the day, you either want to set a precedent and make sure that never happens again. And spoiler, Overdrive, who was saying, who is the ESIC? Why are ESIC not banning Zonic? They are a corrupt entity. Rise up, CIS region. Go get ESIC, right? There was an ESEA Cash Cup where there's a new coach bug and people were using it, and he clipped it, put a video out, and said, "Why haven't ESIC banned these people? Well, do you want them or do you not?" The end. Like, you have to decide.
Yes,
you have to decide. They might make decisions you don't like. They might get it wrong sometimes, but do you want somebody who has the authority to ban cheaters, match fixers, people like doing other shady shit, or don't you? Just make a decision. I'll tell you what, you don't deserve an entity like this. You don't. Esports doesn't.
No, if you look at it, all they're doing, Richard, is using friend-enemy distinction and going, if it's someone else, arrest them. And as you say, the day they come and knock on your door, you go, I don't acknowledge your jurisdiction. Fuck off with that game. That's just whack.
I know. So bad. So anyway, then we do get into the major, for realsies. And so we end up with, there was a little bit of drama and whatnot. I mean, on the first couple of days, I think there was like a few little tech problems and stuff. But in general, from the broadcast perspective, they did hit the ground running.
Was that one where, like, mate, they can't help themselves that run these fucking social media accounts. You know, when, obviously there was the thing where they didn't have anything on the fucking stream at the very beginning, and then ESL was trying to meme them.
Yeah, I did see that, yeah.
Come on, man. Come on.
I know.
Especially because as we like, you know this as well, Sorry, ESL, face it, and I one day probably blast when they get bought. The second you do take the Saudi money, you no longer get to have fun jokingly calling people out. That's all that ends for you. Listen, here's the good news. You have $1 billion. Sit back, chill with your 1 billion, just sort your shit out. Because that's the problem. People keep doing this to me as well, like you've seen. It's like, mate, I'm sorry, you can't poke fun at me when I can just say your boss murders children. Like I KO you then. I win that. It's a technical TKO. I win just by the ref says I win. He pulls me off. Yeah. There's no battle even to have there, is there? Like that, there's so much clownery in esports now. Like sadly, we've driven this point home, but like it is just optics. It's what it appears, not what there's no substance. There's nothing to penetrate to.
Yeah. So we may as well, I think, talk about the start of the major. We'll sort of get some of the storylines about the challenger stage.
This, by the way, is probably the craziest upset major of all time.
Well, yeah, and also, the major that is why it was there for the take. And I even think, by the way, some of the teams that went out in the challenger stage obviously are going to be kicking themselves a little bit because, like you say, anything could have happened here, like legitimately.
No, mate, I'm not even joking. Even teams that like who give a fuck anyway about like Astralis. If you see how wacky the results are in the next phase, if you just make it there, who the fuck knows who you draw? And if you get the BO1s, like, mate, as you say, there's a world where almost every team by the end had some scenario where they could have got, like, look at the teams that didn't make through. Everyone's trying to meme on me, obviously, about did I get the kind and I got fuck all things. Spoiler, go look at all the analysts in the world, mate. Everyone had the teams I had. This one had all the biggest teams in the world.
I mean, the HLT,
they got even less, I think.
Yeah, the HLTV guys got less. So, if we're doing it by the standards of the internet, I guess they all have to quit their job as well, right?
Oh, and you'll like this as well. Do you want to know where fans don't give a flying fuck about right and wrong? They just want to poke fun. Mate, I even picked Fury as my 3-0.
Yeah.
How does that work narratively? And are you ready for the kicker? I didn't even pick Imperial as my 0-3.
No,
it doesn't. Nothing matters. There are no facts in this world.
I did. I picked them. As my 0-3.
A fair pick. Yeah.
I thought it was a toss up between them and Bad News Eagles, but I went against myself there because also I know how valuable experience is at these types of events.
Similar scenario for me. Yeah.
Fogging up my glasses, it's that one. So look, let's talk about this. We didn't do it on the other podcast we do for the other Pop Flash one. We said it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Come with me, Duncan, and let's murder some fish in a barrel. Team Liquid, fucking terrible, and uniquely terrible, even by their own terrible standards. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about the stats. The stats don't lie. They sort of limped insipidly along, through the challenger stage. They just got in.
Not even against good teams.
No, I mean, like, listen, they obviously they lost both the best of ones. They had their backs to the wall, and then fortunately they were served up. A sort of trifecta of eminently winnable games. 9Z minus their coach, complexity, not good enough really to hang at this level yet. Maybe that lineup can never be. And then obviously a very dysfunctional Astralis. Spoiler, we'll talk more about them in a second. But then they got through to the next round and they were just straight out. I mean, they got beat by Heroic, they got beat by Furia, and their lifeline game was against Vitality. They got 2-0'd by a Vitality who are, by all accounts, not playing very well. And when you looked at the stats for the second stage, not just the challenger stage, they did all right in the challenger stage, but man alive, the stats overall.
Oh, it's wild.
Right, Shocks was the worst player at that stage of the major.
The entire phase, yes.
Which is crazy because, they also had like only 4 maps. So it's a small sample size. All you have to do is like have one good game. Right?
And think about some of the other players. Look, there's massive teams. There's also Bad News Eagles, Copenhagen Flames, Team Spirit. There's players here who've never, like Zyphon was in the fucking Astralis Academy team. Like Shocks, mate. We're not talking now about like, at the world, you're not up there with the Sphinxes and the fucking Ropses of the world. Like you're the actual worst player in the tournament.
Yeah, which, by the way, if you'd have said to me,
I know,
if you'd have said to me that Team Liquid would go on to the major, and Shocks will be the worst player. I mean, I would have been like, it's bad, but it can't be that bad. Look at all these, like you said, look at all the novices. But here's where it gets really dark.
Oh no,
Elige
That's the killer right there.
Was the 5th worst player at the major.
Remember,
at that
the
stage.
one thing with this team you always assume is at least Elijah and Naf get theirs, right? That's almost the vibe of the team. It's like, that's why they just stay. Yeah, basically, if people don't know, and Elijah generally has been a fairly consistent player at majors, like this was one of his worst in his whole career.
Yeah.
This looks to me like the team doesn't have any confidence in themselves, mate.
Yes, and look, it was really deceptive because I watched Nitro, and definitely in the challenger stage, I thought he had some huge impact.
Sure.
He was making some
Top
really good clutch rounds, top fragging sometimes. He went off the boil here. And then Orsi had 0.87 as an HLTV rating, was in the bottom 20 players. And the only guy who sort of had like a half-decent score, but actually above 1, was Naf.
Yep.
And so this was a staggeringly bad performance, nearly out in the challenger stage, had to rely on playing teams that they should be beating for fun anyway, and then to get into this stage and look as bad as they did. And this is the best team in NA. This is literally the best NA has. Yep. So, I don't know, mate. Let's just start with the shocks question. He's got to go, mate. He's for
everyone.
Yeah.
This is the key thing. It isn't helping his career, mate. It really isn't. Like, I even think, look, unfortunately, I don't actually know if he actually still has the connections to get into another team. Like, he could be in a top team. I hope he doesn't have to go and play in the heats of the world. Obviously, that would kind of be an ignominious end to one of the greatest careers ever in CS. But I do just think, he needs to go to a team. I can't say at a lower level, because sadly Team Liquid is at the lower level, but he needs to go to a team where he is a valuable piece, where he contributes and brings something. And I think, quite frankly, the reason I would say it essentially a lower team, it's going to be a team where he gets the game his way. Like we've seen now, unfortunately, you cannot just drop Shocks in any team. Because I even got the vibe, I said this on a few shows, but a lot of people missed the nuance. If you see in G2, when they had the existence lineup, Shocks was mad off the boil early on. He was having some problems. Then they got Malik in later, similar scenario. He's having to work with Kenny S, Shocks, and what do I do? Right? In these scenarios, I was hearing that the whole way you do it is you have to sort of mind fuck him that he is still a value, he is still a sort of a star. Like, they were saying, you're going to call the pistols. Like, you're still sort of an IGL. Like, they were tricking him to think he has more value and more things so that way then he'd do some of the things they wanted. In Vitality, they seem to have struck that balance perfectly. Extaz seems like he did a fucking killer job. But I have to say, when you look at this team, Liquid Squad, he's never fit this team. It's never got off the ground. It's never would. He's never been Shocks. And even worse, the rumor goes that they signed Shocks thinking they were going to replace Naf with him.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That would have been by the way, you dodged a fucking bullet. You got Naf back there. This team would have been appalling. So yeah, I think at this point in time, it doesn't make sense on any level. He's not the person who's got super strong English. He doesn't enjoy the culture. It can't happen. For everyone, this is madness. We've got to end it now. And this has to be the obvious, rip the Band-Aid off. Just do it now. Rip the Band-Aid off now.
Yeah. I mean, listen, retirement, I think, I don't, because like you say, I don't even know, where does he go? What's the lower level that you can go to if you're struggling in an NA team, what's the lowest level? There isn't, this is rock bottom in his career.
It's why I think personally you only get away with it if you get a miracle, which is actually akin to how we got in Team Liquid. What you need is this to happen. You need something like Alex to say, Fnatic, get me Shocks and I'll make him. You need like that. You need like a mate to pull you out the fire on this one, I think.
Yeah, maybe. For me, I just feel, listen, he's a legend. He's not going to feel good about the level he's playing at. We had questions about whether or not he could go to a team like this. Like, what could he do outside of the French scene, No,
I agree.
And unfortunately, there was maybe an option in a different time where he could have left the French scene and played on a team like this back in the super team.
Yeah, the offers I've heard, Yeah,
maybe he could have come in for Olaf or something, but it never happened. And unfortunately, he's left it too late to sort of go and explore and play outside of his comfort zone like this. The evidence bears it out. For whatever reason, it's just not going to work. He's a shadow of himself. And you can't justify it when typically Shocks is meant to be one of the star players on a lineup. So
yes,
yeah, unfortunately, I mean, look, if it's him, I've known him a long time. He's a super cool guy, he'll be thinking about retirement, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And, it probably is his time if this is the level he's at now. No one wants to see this.
By the way, just a little petty detail I'd like to add, because by the way, people always do that as well, because they've decided that we're like arrogant and don't ever have self-reflection, and they think we're not aware of our flaws. I'm fully aware I'm a very petty person. I actually fucking love it, because if you don't know, I'm very detail orientated. So if you specifically, in a certain sense, fuck with me, I'll make a note and I'll find where it's appropriate in the context to bring that up. So here's an obvious example. Believe it or not, I can't remember what piece of content it was, but I actually made a point years ago. It's why I did the CS royalty thing with Olaf Meister. I just decided one day I'd had enough. I've had enough of people carrying water for guys who were legends 3 years earlier, and now you're the legend, but they're actually washed now. And you're just sort of actually, if the public don't know, you're running interference for them keeping 20k contracts, staying in snobs. And remember, I always say this, a fan can't process it this way, but this is why I have to call this guy out, because you are occupying a spot of a very good up-and-coming player, and it's his time to win. It is his time to be in the best Brazilian team. It is his time to be in Team Liquid. There's someone in Complexity right now would do Shox' job way better. And he doesn't have that gig or that money because Shox was so good in French Counter-Strike. Now, that cannot stand. And so one of the problems I said, unfortunately, why I have to be the one to do it, because I'm the one who can just take the fucking abuse, is because you'll never get it from the rest of them, because there's this weird dynamic where pros who essentially, the pro who was getting beaten up by that guy when he was a legend still are sort of in his mind simps for him. And he's sort of like, but if I could get him, he'd get back in that shape, and we'll get prime Shox back. So all I'll say is this, Shox, you didn't come against me. Fair play on that, mate. I actually appreciate when people give a sentiment, you don't have to attack the other one. But I will just say, he went out of his way to say publicly, he's on Fallen's side in my whole thing, Richard. Get ready for the topic of being overrated. Really, Shox? You're not in favour of legendary players being called out for being overrated when A, they're not good, B, they have no business beyond that team, and are you ready for C? They're getting paid way too much money. Well, that's fucking convenient, isn't it, homie? Here's the joke. When Simple does it, that's straight fire. He's the best player ever, even by my words. That's a really good argument. It's not a fucking great argument from authority, but I tell you what, it works for fans. That's going to work like a motherfucker. Shox, sit with this one out, mate, because guess what? If you keep playing, you're on that list. You'll be in one of those videos of mine soon, mate. So all I'm saying is, like, have some fucking self-respect in that regard. Like, you can say you love the guy. You don't have to pretend like we're playing a game and you're all the old, because that's the other vibe a lot of them have. They all sort of believe that. They all believe like, those old guys could still compete, but it's just the bloody politics of the scene. It isn't. We watch you play the game, boys. You're just not as good anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And look, it's an interesting point, because obviously, Team Liquid, they realized that talent was thin on the ground in America, and they were looking for Europe. Shox wasn't even the first choice, I don't think. They sounded out a lot of people, and so
all of whom, by the way, from what I've heard, have gone to teams that are good now. It seems like they were doing a good scouting job. They couldn't get anyone to sign though.
Yeah, well, I mean, why would you? And so here's the reality. Look, I think it's a bit of a meme that EG have just signed like 2 academy teams. When their main team probably couldn't beat any of their fucking academy teams. But the reality is, if you want 15 people on a fucking, under your umbrella, at least you might do something there to develop some talent, at least with things like the We Play League. Who knows what could happen in a year or two? It's forward thinking. What Team Liquid were doing was they were looking backward. They wanted something instant. They wanted somebody that was experienced and tenured, and unfortunately, they crapped out. They picked, they got the tail end of a legend. But like I say, it's almost like it's like Cerrone in the UFC now. Like, just please stop, like, please. So that was the Liquid story. For some of our old foils, let's say, loads of good stuff to talk about. I mean, at least Liquid did get through the fucking challenger stage. Astralis didn't even do that. And
by the way, what a perfect narrative of how exactly
at the expense of a Liquid team, we've just spent all this time showing up.
Come on,
mental, isn't it? And look, here's the thing: as we rightly identified, Nickel and Nyholm Lord of the Dark Arts, he got them a 3-1-0 win because they played the IHC Mongolian team in their best of one. So they're already up and running. They got Vitality next. That's like one of them where because, there's all the psychology at play, former players going up against old players. It's a coin toss. They got battered in that. Then they beat MIPR, right? You're in touching distance. Just go close it. Team Spirit, who've been a revelation at this major. I'm not even going to not going to talk too much about them because, I think they're going to win their next games.
I'm with you on that one, mate. Their players look unbelievable at this tournament. Yeah. Even the new ones that you've never heard of. It's not just Dexter, even. That's the crazy part, isn't it?
Patsy's finally, come alive. So anyway, that's respectable, especially within the context of the tournament. But then you are given Liquid. You are given lowly Team Liquid. And
you have the greatest psychological advantage ever over in the history of the game.
Yes.
If you can't win this one, that's like how many omens do you need that you're fucked? Do you have to walk under a ladder, have the crows come out? Like, fucking hell, mate. Like, at the end of the day, I'd just stay home. I'd lock myself in at that week. Like, mate, this was not for you, Astralis. This wasn't for you. And also, then even think about the way their team played. Blame F, as usual, gets his numbers. By the way, I've turned the corner on that. The problem with this is, if you're supposed to be the best team in the world, it's like Jame. Now I have to criticize things I think maybe you don't do and where the numbers are a little bit empty calories. If you're a team where I think you're shit as a team, you're really not that good. Actually, now I start to feel like, you know what? Give him his props. At least he plays. At least he does his fucking job. He's earned his contract. The rest of them, mate, everyone on that one, I'm so out on some of these players.
Blame F was I think the top rated player in the challenge stage. It was mental. Certainly was for like the first 2-3 days. At the end, he had 62 kills against Liquid as well. And by the way, I was making this point on the No Majors Club. I'll just repeat it here. All the people who were saying, it's Bait F, it's Bait F, it's Bait F, these are low impact kills, you don't understand what he does, right? Because he, put it this way, if you can guarantee a trade kill on a T side every time by baiting, you're a fucking god. Yep. You're a god, right? It's as simple as that. That is a skill. That was what the old Na'Vi used to do so well. I'm talking back in the Edward days. The reason they were still a force, even with those older players on the roster, their trade fragging was absolutely mega. Yes. And so blame F. He won't just trade for one. He'll get the next guy that fucking piece as well. He's so hyper aware of it. And when he's doing that lurking thing and he comes and he shoots two in the back and maybe a round's over, he pads his stats. But at the end of the day, he is the best player on this Astralis lineup right now in terms of relative to their role, right? He is doing everything right. He's doing everything you do.
Oh, by the way, the roll angle's key as well. Here's what people forget as well. I was also critical because he was the IGL of complexity. So my angle went like this. It's like, well, which one are you? Are you the IGL? Because by the way, complexity is not really that fucking super sick or anything. Or are you the fragger? In which case, isn't being the IGL helping yourself? Well, here's the difference. He passed the happy test. If people don't know, the reason Happy, look, he was actually a very good player when it worked. But the reason why he wasn't like the superstar he appeared when he won MVPs is because when you made him not the IGL, it didn't work anymore. Suddenly, not having the sort of puppets on the death ball meant his lurking style didn't work. Blame F's style works in when he's not the IGL. That's why I say I've got to give it up to him as an individual player. That means he does have good decision making. He is putting himself in the right places. He's winning all his duels. He has a very consistent skill set. So that's the one part about Astralis. I don't have a problem with Blame F at all. I want him to be in this team. He might even, as I did on Twitter, it's basically him and Stown for best player in Denmark. Fair play. Astralis has sort of even looked out getting this guy. But everything else about Astralis, fucking hell. How much time was that?
It was whack, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, look, we can narrow it down and then we can use it to segue into talking about some rumors. Yeah. So look, I mean, here's the first thing. Config was good, but not mega.
Yes.
But I mean, the dead weight Zipnix presents to this team. And listen, I don't even think Farlig played particularly poorly.
He did, but the problem with him in general, mate, I have is it's almost like this is why it might have in the end been genius to get Lockie, because in my brain, of course, I compare him to Lockie, and he's obviously an upgrade, and he's an experienced player. But here's the other problem: you did used to have Device in that spot, so you are used to your AWP being mega impact. He's not a superstar player. Let's be real; he's not a right player. He's an average. I would say he's an average tier one AWP.
But let's also say this: so I think it have a lot of impact on the AWP in Vertigo. You really have to be a mega AWPer.
Yes.
And also an ancient, it's not really an AWP pauper's
Oh,
paradise.
it's hard as fuck, yeah.
But I mean, look, so just to compare, right? So they lost 16-14 on Vertigo to Team Liquid, right? Which was, slightly promising in a way over the course of the series because, that was Liquid's pick. Blame F, 40 kills in a regulation game, 40 kills. I think that's the record at the major.
Yeah, it is.
40 kills.
Because the old was the Megas 37 or whatever. So yeah, that's a record. You can't fuck with that.
Yeah, 40 kills and 20 deaths, right? Zipnik's 9 for 22. That's like some fucking Fifth Lauren meme level shit.
That's mental.
Yeah, and so don't ever tell me that he was not the big difference here as to why there wasn't Astralis in the later stages of the tournament. Farlig, this was a hard series for him. I don't hate him as a pickup. He was an upgrade from Lucky. But listen, Zipnix has got to fucking go. We saw all the Valdez stuff break over the course of the major. I don't believe in coincidences in the Danish scene. It's dirty as fuck.
Yep.
And anything flies out there right now. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. You know what I mean? And Valdez said he wants to win titles. He's given as much as he wants to give to OG. And OG, when Astralis went out, even tweeted, we should give Valde to Astralis for charity.
That was ridiculous when they did that. Like, when would that even be a meme? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And by the way, here's a quick detail I'll just weave in quickly. All I'll say is this. Remember good old Nicola Nyholm calling out all the players on Astralis saying, I want you to be in my office to explain if you knew about this cheating or not. Right, here's you, Nicola Nyholm. Here's a mirror I'm going to hold up to you. If the coach you did hire, cheating bug, you don't even have him as your coach anymore. You've just got rid of him completely. Zonic apparently has a thing where he hasn't reported it. It's looking bad already, mate. And who was the guy who was supposed to bridge the gap between Zonic and Ave? Hunden, one of the most egregious cases. Homie, just because Trace hasn't even been in the game, I feel like he's probably safe. Do you just exclusively work with cheaters? My joke is, because this really is how these teams seem to operate, you're just pissed off they cheat for the other team. You just want them to cheat for your team. Like, where is your fucking moral standard? What the hell is that? So anyway, that's just something I thought I'd weave in, because if you're going to take the moral high ground, someone's going to call your shit out.
And listen, I like the addition of Trace. We even said that too, right?
Sure.
Get rid of Ave and fucking, bring Trace in, make it permanent. They did. Fair dues, like you say as well. No chance.
People might not even know this dude. He even has a cool storyline. So when I did, and people might know he was going to come in at CSGO when they were going to do that team before Zonic became the original Astralis coach. They were going to make MTW again, remember, with the old classic lineup. And so he was playing in that, right? Then after that, like a year later or something, I did a reflections interview with him. And obviously I'm just thinking, your career's over, we're doing the interview. And at the end of it, he says something like that he's trying to be a player again. Now, listen, you've had this happen before. Think of people, the classic example is like, Nico with a C, the old Orper of like Glade's old team.
Yeah.
Like, if people don't know, he kept playing for years and years. He might be playing now, but he's just on such a low level. It's like, don't ever think he's coming back. Like, if he plays sort of for fun or a semi-pro, and it's buried in online qualifiers you've never seen. Trace did that for a few years, dude, thinking he could get back individually. He didn't make it. And so now recently he's transitioned to coach. So I actually think, no joke, this is the opposite of what normally happens in esports. Normally, like Ave, you go, hey, you used to be a legend at a different game, walk right in the door, and here's a top gig, see if you can do it. He's actually earned his way back. He has done the hard grind from zero back up. I respect that. I don't know how good he is as a coach yet, but I respect that. You deserve a shot, actually. That's a rare, like, cool Astralis story, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And like you say, he was always someone I fucking used to love watch play.
Oh, one of the best ever, yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. So good to see him back in the scene. And also, by the way, he's still the same guy. He's still got that passion. Like, every time they're on the camera on him, he's animated, he cares, he's invested. He's not, I get the vibe he ain't there for a paycheck.
He's also not a fuck boy. Like, I'll tell you what, he was I won't say anything he's told me, but he was a guy where I got the sense he didn't like some of the things Astralis gets up to and whatnot. So I also get the sense he's there to do his job, mate. He's not there to just fucking get the money, like you say, and be popular or whatever.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? You need that kind of fortitude if you're going to be a coach. So listen, I fuck with it. I wish him all the success, but I will say he's not a fucking miracle worker. You can't win anything with Astralis.
eSportsBet is the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. They exclusively work off crypto. You deposit crypto, you can bet with it, you withdraw crypto. By the way, when you deposit crypto to the site, they actually give you 10% per year back. obviously based on a year. It'll scale based on how long you have it in there. They'll just give you that for having it in the account, basically. You can bet on all esports games, CSGO, all levels of CSGO, League of Legends, Valorant, Rainbow Six, FIFA, Dota 2, whatever game, Rocket League, whatever game you can imagine, they have it. So it's not just for your CSGO needs. Thanks to them, obviously, for sponsoring this particular podcast. And if you're watching something like the Major or the big tournaments like MSI, it's on the site right now. You can go there, you can play for free with the DJT, or you can deposit your crypto. There'll be a link in the bottom down below if you want to deposit your own crypto, and you can get a discount on that. I think it should be up to 50%, 50% deposit bonus, up to $200. So you can get a cheeky little amount there to play with extra, so you can have some fun with it. Thanks to Esports Bet. Let's get on with the rest of the show.
So let's just get to the rumours. I don't think OG are tweeting that out about Valde unless that deal's already been talked about and is on the table. And spoiler, by the way, Valde's agent, he's a former co-founder, I believe, of Astralis, and also worked at Blast with Nicola Nyholm, Jordi Roig, I think his name is, and now he's repping Val. There's no way it's not happening. There's no way, right? Like, Valde has to be going to fucking Astralis to replace Zignix, yeah? Or I'm out of my motherfucking mind. Now, here's the thing. Forget that for a second. There's also, it can't be real. But tell him.
Basically, here's the thing. This isn't my story I'm reporting. I have to do that again on By the Numbers.
Yeah, I know.
Spoiler. Here's the reason why it wouldn't be. Why the fuck would I drop it here? You know what I mean? Why would Richard? Guess what? He drops it on the site that pays him and he wins a fucking awards for it. You don't drop it here. It's why I actually know they're full of shit on half the podcast when they say stuff. We just put the stuff here that we can't say is true because we've only heard it as a rumor or all signs point to it. So basically what I heard behind the scenes, and I'll be careful how much I say about this, but essentially the whole device to nip thing wasn't what it appears, as in it wasn't perhaps the reasons we were told. I want to finally be number one. Nip is 5 steps ahead. We are going to do so. It's like signing Cristiano. It wasn't any of those things. As far as I can tell, it was something to do with Device's personal life, which has changed. And now, basically, that story, here's another, I'll drop a little fucking, I'll throw a bone to the fans here. You know, like Richard just pointed out there, why would OG out of nowhere be going like, maybe we should give Valde to them? Spoiler, if the deal's not done, maybe charge a little bit extra for that. Now the fans know that they want you on there because we've got fan support. Like that, right? Have you ever noticed how in Denmark, people who themselves have connections and have played with these players, Pimp would be an example, who's an influencer, an analyst, has opinions, willing to speculate. Here's how they do what we do on this show. We say, well, I've heard this player's going there. They do this, Richard. It's smart because it makes you look like you're super knowledgeable about the game. You go, I think they should make this lineup. And you just say the lineup that you've heard the same rumor I have. But you're making it like, if I was in charge, I'd do this. And then when they do it, it looks like you're a bloody genius. But the joke is, I've heard Valde goes there. And yes, I have heard the fucking prodigal son returns. Device comes back to Astralis. So by the way, if no one's keeping track, sorry, Farley.
I know you're just still on the lucky file.
I know, mate. That's the problem. People are going to wonder how I'm going to resolve this because let's be real. I'm going to actually be quite excited by the lineup. Like it will be a competent team. So what I'll do is this: competitively, I will always give people their due. Get ready though, because I'm going to do a video and it's going to essentially be about why is Astralis allowed to literally just exploit and destroy the careers of young men as a stepping stone. There is Bobski, there is Lockie, there is Farlig. Dude, that's in like 1.5 year span or something mental. And all what? So that after all this bullshit, you get back to Device again. Like at that point, I consider that bad faith behavior from Astralis, you know.
Oh, totally.
I don't feel like you ever gave either of these guys their real chance. Essentially, what you said is an impossible task. It's like, you know what, right? Lucky, you have to be a really good AWP at tier 1. Can't even do that. Farlig, you have to almost like, I don't know, fucking make us get to the semis of the major. Like these are not reasonable expectations. You shouldn't be throwing a guy in the deep end there. Because again, same thing with Lucky, right? Obviously he's in contract hell, but think of Farlig, right? Who's going to pick him up? He hasn't shone. He hasn't had breakout games. This is probably the zenith of his career, and he didn't even get like a year. He didn't even get the 6 months. What does he get? A couple of months? That's whack as fuck, mate.
I mean, what'd be interesting is if we'll be able to see what type of contract he signed, right? Because here's the thing: if he signed,
I certainly wonder about that. Yeah, is it one where he was on a trial basis, or was it one where he had like, if you don't get X at the major? Because let's be real, they're fucking cynical enough to do that.
Yeah, And also it also suggests that maybe there's been look. I don't know anything. I've got no insight into whether or not Device is going to go back. I've heard the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I've heard it, but I've been hearing it for a while. So I just
it sounds to me like this is why I have to be very careful again, because unlike cocksucker fucking Casper Fid, I don't take lightly mental health. I think actually, in fact, I go the other way, Richard. I think it is such an important topic that if it ever comes out that it isn't totally for that, but you use that as the main reason, I've told you, I use it as a stolen valor principle. You are actually making light of mental health because you know it is a smokescreen no one can penetrate. In the same way as if someone came in and said, I am depressed, you can't say to them, no, you're not. You have to say yes. You have to take it. So the problem is this. Not only did Device not play for ages for Nip now, we're talking like 5-6 months, guys.
Yes.
Not 2 months, not 1 month. By the way, he never got this sort of fucking break in Australis. He got a couple of months off. Oh, no, he didn't even get the time off. Sorry, he didn't even take time off in Australis. I forgot about that one.
He didn't even take it off, yeah.
So the thing that kills me is this angle. It's like, because I was hearing, and those tweets from Pimp, etc., were at the major last year, we've already been hearing the rumblings this might happen essentially 6 or 7 months ago now. And it sounds to me like both teams would either he was trying to get his way back there, or they were trying to see, do we really need him though? Now, what would the deal be? They'll wait to see what happens with Nip, and then Nip's doing all these weird things, or they're getting brought on, or what's going on here. And so when all this shit's circling around, I also feel like that's a part I'm a bit uncomfortable with, because I don't know that I buy the story completely for that one reason, that he's just waiting and that he's about to become mentally well, and that's why he's going to play for Australis. That just seems to me akin to, this happens in Dota if people don't know. Classically, if you win TI in Dota, what you do is you win, then you go, I retire now that I've won TI, and then they go, right, we release you for your contract. 3 months later, you join the team you want to join next. That's how they do it over there.
Yeah,
I'm getting that sort of vibe.
Well,
it's like,
listen,
you didn't really retire.
Here's how I don't think the mental health thing's at play anymore. If it was, that interview Hampus just did, where he said,
oh, it's wild, yeah.
This is the lineup I want to see us keep going with Essetag on the oar.
I don't think you ever say that if he's coming back.
No. First of all, yeah, you definitely don't say if he comes back. But if he's off and he's sick, that's mad insensitive. So so no. He was back. He was grinding FPL. He was, and remember though, put down as a sub.
Here's my problem. When everyone started this exact speculation, that's when he said about the mental health. That was essentially what he said. He essentially came out and said, "It's mental health. Who wants to take this on? No one does." So we go, okay, mate.
By the way,
my bad.
I absolutely do not doubt he crashed.
Oh, absolutely.
I do not doubt.
Remember, he still does have those physical health problems. Yes. By the way, if people don't know, this is what's weird. The reason those problems will always fuck you is because it's stressful to be on stage. It's also stressful to not be doing well. Like both of them cause stress, and Faz, I know it isn't his one of those ones where stress makes it worse.
He has a stomach condition that is exacerbated by stress, so he gets a very bad physical reaction.
Yes. So I've no doubt he had some impingement of that. I will never say that is not the case, of course.
Yes. Yeah. But for real, like, it seems to me that, well, certainly his Nip career is over, and leaving this very strange situation. And I suppose while we're at this impasse,
do it.
We can talk about the sticker story I published on Dessert or just a few days ago. Basically, for those who may have missed it, you can go look it up. But there's a dispute going on between the players, both some current, some who aren't there anymore. Sources have told me that basically NIP were of the opinion that the sticker money that went out in the capsule for the 2020 Rio Major, that was released after the major was cancelled as a way of, okay, sorry, we're not having a major. We understand you're missing out on some money. We're going to do some sticker sales, and they're going to pop off and be more popular because obviously there is no attached major. It's a one-off kind of like occurrence. So obviously all the people
even makes it rarer in a way, doesn't it? Yeah.
All the people that are collectors and shit are all on it. And then that was a way of giving a cash injection to the teams. And obviously Valve took 50% off the top because it's Valve.
It's Valve.
They're
always going to get their beak wet. We all know that.
So anyway, to put the long story short, I've had a bit more time to update the story, and we made some minor edits to it, but just so people know, the Legends stage capsule, I am told, was in the region of about $3 million. That's what each team got in the Legends stage. And obviously the teams with the team capsules, they pocket a portion and then they share some with their players. And obviously for signature stickers, they all go to the players. That's typically the norm. That's why they're there. So apparently there's this ongoing issue where NIP have decided that the capsule was created by Valve solely for the purposes of the teams to get a cash injection so they could survive during the pandemic. So I was...
when you say that, though, I have a quick question. So the obvious question was, I notice, again, people don't get this. They'll never get it. But I tried to make this point on Twitter. The whole reason why Nell looked like a fool over that Shearer thing is because he tried to do what we do and wade in, but he wasn't careful around the right areas. We're very careful with our phrasing. We'll never say something. So one thing I would ask there is, I noticed you said they are of the opinion. Is that, do they actually have evidence of Valve telling them that is what it was made for?
Well, not that I've seen, but what
that's key to me, you know.
So based on the statement they made to the players. So basically, there was a group chat, and Jonas Kalk Gunderson, who was the COO of NIP, he addressed the players because they were concerned about, are we getting the sticker money? Are we not getting the sticker money? They have an agreement in their contract, by the way, which I'll start by reading that. In their contract, it says, quote, the team shall receive 16.6% of the team stickers earned by the player. The player shall receive the remaining 83.33% of the team stickers money divided with his teammates. The player shall allocate 2% of the player's sticker money to a marketing fund dedicated to the CSGO team. Team shall, when receiving the sticker money, deduct and transfer that to a dedicated bank account. The fund shall be spent on initiatives approved by the CSGO team. A minimum 4 members of the CSGO team have to approve how that money is spent. The player shall receive 100% of the individual stickers money, that's the signatures, which is allocated to the players. That is the clause. By the way, I'll put this on a sidebar. That 2% shit, I've never seen nothing like that in the contract in all my life. We'll come back to it. Anyway, this is what, so off the back of that, the players believe, again, according to sources talking to me, the players believe that they should have the sticker money, the portion of it, and that NIP are going to take their 16%, and then they're going to get the remainder divided up between the 5 players at the time, which is 3 players on the current roster, and Nork and Twist, who were on the roster at that time, no longer at NIP. Anyway, so Jonas Kalk Gunderson, in a group chat to all of the players, said, I understand there's a lot of talk floating around the stickers, and that's in air quotes. We've talked about this earlier, but it seems people have forgotten. These were capsules created by the teams and okayed by Valve in order to survive the pandemic and keep paying salaries without any cuts, despite the complete lack of sponsorships and exposure. Therefore, it's not stickers as it would be normally because there was no major. This was a desperation move for many teams because elsewhere, something like half would have pulled out of CSGO altogether. I know many teams treated this differently, and some paid portions out to the players. We opted not to do that and keep salaries intact and the business running normal, adding more support staff around the team to make it an even better place to win majors. There's also very different contracts on teams based on the normal sticker money, where you guys get almost 100%, and either way, everyone does things individually. Now, there's a lot in that statement that I take exception to. Let's start with the assertion that the capsules were created by Valve for the teams to survive the pandemic. There is nothing in Valve's blog that says that, apart from a vague wording which says, for these stickers, 50% of the proceeds directly supports the teams. I believe NIP are expecting that line in the blog to do a lot of heavy lifting for them in this argument. But that, to me, says Valve are taking 50%. The 50% of the sales is going to you. And
then you divide it how you divide it. There you go.
Right.
That's what I thought as well when I saw it. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, it's entirely possible that actually Valve did it with that intent, but Valve are never coming out and clarifying that. What you do, this is a private contractual dispute. What you do with sticker money is private. It's part of your business. Valve are not going to come out and clarify. And I will also tell you this, Valve will not like the fact that you have invoked them in this at all. Especially given it's fucking NIP of all organizations.
Again.
Haven't we fucking done this before, guys, with the sticker money and the prize money?
By the way, jokes aside, if this was League of Legends, as bad as people think Riot is, this fucking org wouldn't be in the business anymore, mate. They would be out that fucking door. When you fuck players over and over, you will, even Riot goes, bloody hell, it's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, though. I know from back when I broke that story, unfortunately, not a lot of people know it because it was when I was writing for the Bad website for a brief period of time. We drove that CEO that was essentially robbing the players and not paying them. We drove him out the business. Per Lillyfeld, he went. Right, you go look it up. Go look at my reporting. They owed the entire team. This is how much the scene scaled up. They owed the entire team like 340,000. Now you're talking potentially 340,000 players money per player, and that's fucking crazy, right? Yes. Now, so I reject the premise. By the way, like as I said, I talked to other owners. I talked to owners in the Legend stage. I talked to owners also further down the capsule just to make sure there was no mixed messaging. Bottom line. Every other owner that got back to me, every other owner I was able to contact said they paid the players. And also, they don't recall anything from Valve them being told directly, you are free to pocket this money. It is so you survive the pandemic. This seems to be pure, unless NIP can prove otherwise, this seems to be entirely NIP's interpretation, which of course is problematic. Next, they also said, right, that we decided to pocket the money to keep salaries intact and the business running normal, adding more support staff.
That's the giveaway, isn't it?
What do you mean?
What you've essentially said there is, I need the money just to keep afloat, but actually I'm going to use it to get a boat and I'm going to be on top. Which is it? Are you peddling water? Are you desperate to stay alive? By the way, that in itself is even quite telling that didn't come out as a story. It shows that Valve doesn't just go for every fucking like nice feel-good story. Spoiler, I know from Flashpoint, loads of orgs that did not want to let on in public were destroyed by what was going on. The ones who had the sports teams, the ones who had certain tech companies that had like fucking issues. Like some of these teams were literally, they went from like, I have millions budget to nothing this year. So I can imagine this did keep them afloat. There might even be a scenario here where if you couldn't put the truth serum into calc, he would just say, mate, there'd be no nip. We wouldn't, so they wouldn't get the money either way. Maybe the business goes bankrupt. The problem is, like you say, he's trying to simultaneously be like, we needed it, but also then he's like, but he's like trying to make it sound like, here's the worst part about saying you added the support staff. I think that's supposed to sound like, I did give you the money, but I gave you it in the form of a better coach. I gave you some psychology. That sounds like you're saying you gave it back. You didn't. Spoiler, that's your business. That increases the value of your business. That is paying your staff. What you did, if that's true, is if someone determines that should have been player money, you took player money and essentially invested it into your business. And by the way, just as Nork and Twists know all too well, the second your services are no longer required, goodbye, I will not be investing in you. So like, that's why I do that. There's something exploitative about the way he phrased that. I agree.
And then on top of that as well, another part of it, we took them, it was okayed by Valve in order for us to survive the pandemic so we could keep paying salaries without any cuts. But by the way, guys, I don't know what to tell you. Any cuts you would have made would have been completely optional and voluntary on behalf of the staff because a contract is a contract. And we saw all this with Astralis beforehand.
Yes, absolutely.
So you wouldn't have been able to just willy-nilly make cuts. And by the way, you could terminate contracts, but then you would have had to pay out more money. So, don't go framing it that way neither. And then they said, despite a complete lack of sponsorships and exposure. Did I miss the part, by the way, where NIP lost all their sponsors in the pandemic? Why wasn't that announced? Because
it wasn't. Yeah.
They still had them on the website.
And here's another detail. I know you were going to go here anyway, but I'll just say it now. Right, we're still in 2020 in our minds here. We're still their decision at the time, Richard, figuring out what we do with sticker money and what was the back and forth. Here's the other part that actually, this makes me sick. This actually makes me sick to my stomach. You know, one of the reasons I hated the Astralis story so much in CSGO when they asked them to take the pay cuts and they weren't letting them have the time off is because I knew in League of Legends, players had already taken a pay cut to join and then were being told not just take a pay cut, but even manipulation like this guy in the office is fired. Don't you want Jimmy to have a job still? Like the most most abusive possible toxic way to do it. Similarly, here's my problem. Think of the two topics we've discussed. Device might come back from an IP, and then so they signed Device in the meantime, and then they've just signed Brolan. So what you mean, Richard, is an org that notoriously didn't do giant, big free agent signings, and these weren't even free agents, has signed 2 players that were even under contract for enormous sums of money. Spoiler, millions of dollars. And they're admitting now, by his own words, they don't have sponsors and money. Sounds like the millions of dollars came from this.
Makes me wonder, by the way, what you really mean by support staff, because, like, it's a hell of a coincidence that you've decided to pocket something that we know is in the region of $3 million. And you remember how cagey they were when it was Device's $1 million buyout. Brolan and 700,000. Remember at that press conference where Hitcham Shaheen was there? And he was going, well, we don't need to talk about the transfer fee. And there was that weird agency involved as well, right? Crazy shit. So look, I'm gonna just say this. This story is not gonna go away, and I'll tell you why. So my understanding from talking to sources is that the current players on the roster that may or may not be owed this money, they don't want to rock the boat.
Of course.
They're at a major, especially.
And that's the nip way anyway. That's just what you do when you're nipping it. You're in the mafia. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get killed if you say anything.
Yeah, you can't say shit, right? That's how that is. But Nork, in particular,
who, by the way, if you follow what I just said, they used the money that was his to replace it with Device. Like, bro, Jonas Gunnarsson, Cal, you are a cunt, mate. I'm sorry, you just are. Like, the joke is, because you're Danish, why did they just not let you in Australis? You are like the heir to Nicola and I almost something. It's mental, isn't it?
So you have that. Then, right, like, so Nork is, according to sources, is not going quietly at all. Like, apparently he's kicking and screaming. And I also heard there's a chance that the CSPPA might be getting involved and taking a look at all this.
Okay.
Now I know the CSPPA ain't done anything for a while, but I'll give them their due. First of all, they lit a fire under Isak's ass to get them coaches banned and to get them finishing, the entire coach bug investigation. They said they weren't going to tolerate the potential of cheaters going and competing at a major. Good job. You actually use some leverage in a right way for a change. Now, on top of that, they released a statement congratulating Isak for doing it, saying they absolutely stand in lockstep with them. They've agreed a partnership where they're going to work together where possible with overlap. They even personally thanked me and Lewis Mira, which probably is where Lewis Mira had that shit about him being a snitch come from, but whatever the fuck, because no one can tell the CSP and Isak apart. But
the problem I have as well, by the way, is as you're describing and outlining here, this is why politics always makes for strange bedfellows. Because now suddenly I'm on the bloody CSPPA side, and I'm like, you should get your shit together, because that's how the industry works. You know what I mean?
It's a very changed.
Yes.
It's a very changed space right now.
Yes.
From what I can tell, it was back when it was the active tier 1 pros. They were very interested in feathering their nests. I mean, this came up again, by the way, completely unrelated, but it's that type of podcast. You know what you get when you sign up to Buy the Numbers. Obviously, Twists did an interview where he was talking about the NA players that didn't want to stick around in CS and moved across to Valorant for an easy paycheck. By the way, he said absolutely nothing wrong, but those NA players who had done that or thought they had done that caught feelings and were
they wanted their cake and to eat it.
In esports?
I know. It's so
you
silly.
do surprise me, sir.
I know.
But anyway, the reality is they did make some good points. And one of the points they made was talking about the CSPPA not fighting for them when ESL took away all their slots and essentially left them without a place to go. The old CSPPA was not what it appeared to be. It was fugazi. It was selling a false bill of goods. It was not repping players at all, and seemed to be something Mads Oland wanted to do as a way to get into esports, particularly with a focus on Denmark in particular, but also he wanted to run an agency on the side.
He wanted a side business. Yeah, exactly.
That's all gone now. And what you've got is you've got players who, they're not tier one players. They don't have the same reputation level as some of their counterparts, with maybe the exception of MBK. But I'll tell you what, they give a shit.
They're the ones who care. These are the ones who always cared, mate.
Yeah.
If people don't know, these are the players me and Richard have fucked with the whole time. Stako, fucking NBK. If Christian had stayed, he'd be the one as well. Like, these are the players who are the ones you want running it.
And
Stako, by the way, and NBK really do care more about the strength of the scene than getting themselves rich, which, by the way, you're all going to go, that's what you should do, like fucking Roy Keane or something. But, like, guess what? That isn't the actual standard. Just like when Roy Keane says that about someone scoring 30 goals for, like, Real Madrid or whatever. Like, that actually isn't their job, Roy. That's really good, mate. I know your dad was really harsh or something when you were a kid in Ireland, but, like, actually, believe it or not, you didn't deserve a leather in every night. That isn't his job. All I'm saying, basically. I know, exactly. He was like, it's just doing his job.
He's just doing his job, yeah.
Because that's my logic. But yeah, basically, to bring it all back, that's the mad thing I think about this. It's like in that scenario, these guys are actually who I would pick to run a fucking player association / union. They do care and they're legit. Here's another thing. Notice how when they've been involved, no antagonism, no hostility. They've even reached out to me. I'm sure they've reached out to you. You saw even the way they presented that story about news coming, and they did the interview about what's going on with coaches that are going to come out. Dude, they're doing everything right now. This is what I've wanted the whole time.
Yeah, well, I talked to Chris J as well, because obviously Chris J was the one who publicly had said, the things where it's like, what can we do? We can't fight for him. He put his foot in it. Like, he sort of said as well, like, listen, mentally he wasn't in a good place at that time. Pandemic was.
I sort of know what he even meant. He just misphrased it, unfortunately, in like the worst timing. Yeah, and
he took his eye off the ball, and he said back then he was struggling with his mental a little bit, and he wasn't up for a fight.
Fair enough.
Which, whatever, I can forgive him for that. But
if people don't know, he's a rare example of where, even though technically he was being a bit hostile, that's the reason I apologized to him. Because what I realized in that scenario is, because tensions are so high and we're making it like this, one side is right, I realized that is a legit person who's just going to get destroyed. So, like, I can't let that happen. I have to pull back and, like, look, my point stands, but don't attack this guy. Come on. Maybe he genuinely doesn't know what's going on or something,
Yeah, and I like I say, I think there was a bit of that going on. And look, there's some guys on the CSPPA board I don't know too much about, but right now the guy who seems to be really active is Stako, and he's an underrated character. He's got a really big brain, and he's a really nice
all
dude.
Mega. He's just a cool guy, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, I've got confidence. They seem to be a bit more functional, and they're actually focusing on shit that really matters to players. You know what I mean? And I'm also pretty confident, by the way, next time ESL fuck up, they're not getting a free pass. I'm pretty confident about that now. So CSPPA might come to the table, and that's going to be interesting, because I'm not going to get into this in this episode, but we will be talking about it in the future. There are a number of players who've been fucked on the stickers. They've been bilked, and this is a thing that the sticker money, by the way, is something that you shouldn't have to fight for it. There's a contract there, but orgs will always try and mind fuck you. You were just a stand-in. Like, it's crazy what's going on with some of these teams, and we're going to start seeing lawsuits coming down the fucking pipe. That's
big ones. This is what I dreamed of, Rich. There's a few things I want. Some of them are happening. So one, I want people in California to not be able to just use dodgy old esports boilerplate contracts when their company is valued at $400 million. I don't want that to be allowed, because guess what? That wouldn't be allowed at a smaller not. If me and my dad went and opened a fucking like a roofing company in the car, we can't do that, mate. We'll get banged out immediately. But you can do it and get a competitive advantage in a massive company. So there's one I want. Another one I want, this is a pipe dream, but it's going to happen eventually. I can't wait 40 years down the line when we have the IP rights debate with the devs, and they have to grant that we are doing a performative action and that we have some of the right. I can't wait for that one. But this is the other one. I want to see these contracts tested, because no one's going to court for 3 years over 50K. That's why, spoiler, even Get Right and Forest had to take the fucking dick to some degree, get what they could, and then get out when they could. These are the cases where you have people who are owed these types of money. And also, by the way, you're in Sweden as well, where they have a different sense of justice and stuff like that. So, like, I actually can't wait to see what's going to happen. I feel like we could have some breakthrough cases that could affect the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we would have already had a few, especially in California. Motherfuckers settle real quick.
That's the worst part in it.
Yeah, it's all a fight. It's all fun and games, and then when it comes down to it, like, people are settling. Just write a check, make it go away. as is tradition in America, it seems, for a lot of these things. But anyway, what I'll do now is I'll do that 2% conversation.
Okay.
And then it's either here at the end, like a fucking hangnail, and it makes no sense,
All right.
or Sam does his job and edits it and it all looks seamless. Who fucking knows? But let's talk about
Refresh what the premise was.
Right. So it says in the contract, the player shall allocate 2% of the player sticker money, so specifically the sticker money, that they are given contractually to a marketing fund dedicated to the CSGO team. The team shall do that when receiving the sticker money, deduct it, and then transfer it to a dedicated bank account. I am assuming one the organization controls. And then the funds will be spent on initiatives to be approved by the CSGO team, and it requires 4 members of the team to approve the money spent. So to get this clear, you could be in a team, you could sell a sticker, you get your money, 2% of the money has to go into a bank account that you do not control for the purposes of initiatives. I sort of poked around the edges on this story, and apparently initiatives means, like, you know, if you want to go and have a team building dinner or you want to do a team building exercise, you're paying for it.
Wait a minute, that's mental. Yeah, if people don't get it, again, this is where Calc doesn't seem to understand. He's actually like an executive in this org. That's your business. Like Nork, who, as we've just described, was probably replaced with his own fucking money. And then we didn't know this. So we all went, how can you blame Nip? You have to take device and fuck this guy's whole career. He then is also expected to pay to make him bond with his own teammates so that you can then take credit and say you're 5 steps ahead of next level org. What is that? That comes from your share. And then second, like, here's why I found that mad. Because I initially thought that their finagle was going to be like this. When they said a marketing budget, it's like, what we do is this. We all agree to take a small percent, put it in a market budget, and then, I don't know, that advertises the next sticker sales, next major, and, you know, we do like a marketing campaign or something, and then we all make more money. That would almost work. Like, this just does sound like they're just like the joke is in an IP, they're like, right, guys, good news. We're going to give you a really good discount on the hotels for the majors. We've got the fucking club membership. They're getting you 20% off. It's like, it's default that you pay for that. You know,
I mean, crucially, it does say four members of the team have to sign off on it, right? So that makes sense. But
I don't really know how much autonomy NIP players really have, Richard. I think history's somewhat borne out that you don't really have any while you're in NIP. No. And even worse, you do go in front of the camera on a regular basis with the AK off screen and you just say, you know, glory to the mighty NIP who definitely aren't mistreating me. Wink, wink.
They are treating me well.
Yeah, exactly. I know, exactly.
No, but like, so here's the thing though. You get yourself in a madman situations where, right, I'm on a team, right? So again, Nork and Twist, we're on this team. They were entitled to the sticker money. Let's say they got it. 2% of that, $300,000, $350,000, whatever the fuck it comes out as. 2% of that goes into a bank account, right? I don't control, right? And I get dropped from the team. Now that money's still in the bank account. I ain't getting it back. I had to contractually put it into a bank account. And now I'm paying what? For dinner for the cunts I don't play with no more.
I would love it if that's actually what it was. Nork's money, first of all, his real sticker money bought the only player that could replace him. And then Devices just having, you know, fucking shrimp cocktails at some bar with Nork's other money that he's paying. Like, is there something? Listen, I know I've often made a lot of inappropriate comments about Swedes being cocked, etc. But like, boys, come on.
Another cup of tea, boys.
Silly, I know. It's just silly.
Another cocktail. Like, it's fucking mad, isn't it? Like,
I know.
So, like, I've seen a lot of player contracts down here. Seen a lot of player contracts. And again, any owners out there, when you watch this, because you know all the industry motherfuckers watch it, correct me, come at me and correct me. I've never seen that 2% clause before. I've never seen a clause like it. I've never seen a clause where you are contractually obliged to give up money that another clause in the contract says I'm entitled to, but now this other clause says I have to give 2%. I'm not entitled to all of it. I'm entitled to all of it, and then I'm contractually obliged to give 2% to put into a bank account to be controlled by players that might not even be me in the future. That money sits there. So. And also, there's nothing in the contract that explains what happens if you drop the CSGO team. What then?
I mean, if I had to guess, sadly, I imagine it reverts to the team.
Oh,
You know what? If I had to guess, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Like we never thought of this. So I guess by default, it would just go, we have the account. So it's our money. It'd be some shit like that, won't it?
Mate, there's nothing in PayPal mean fucking is so spot
Oh,
on
here's
for this
another angle for you. Do
organisation.
you want another great angle?
Yeah, go for
This
it.
is also how I see how Nip would envision a contract, because they're evil. Let's just be real. This is what they do, Richard. Don't worry, guys. 4 of you have to sign off on it. 4 currently active players. Oh, we're removing the 2 of you that don't want to sign off. Yeah, we've got 2 new people in. 4 people have signed. There we go. You could even do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could.
How this is adjudicated.
Yeah, you could. I mean, look, what I found really interesting was when I published the story, and keep in mind, I only showed the one clause that was relevant to the story. I didn't show like anything else. You know, I could have, you could have shown whatever, but didn't. But there were lawyers already replying, saying like not esports lawyers, because we've gone past that now. The days of the esports lawyer are over. Now it's just real lawyers, just lawyers. And loads of replies like going, the players are fucked before they begin because they did not lawyer up. And I'm like, wait, what? How? Like, how are you even making that determination based on that singular clause? And then there was another one saying the org are being fucking scummy. I would fight for the players here. And it's like, the lawyers can't even fucking decide. Like, but it just, to me, that 2% shit is weird as fuck. It's just weird as fuck because you don't get it back when you leave. If it was like you will be reimbursed with an amount, commensurate to what you haven't spent or whatever the fuck. But no, it's just a lump sum of thousands of dollars going into a bank account I have no dominion over, potentially to be spent by players I have no relationship with anymore, to benefit an org I'm no longer part of. I'm the petty cash for NIP.
It's wild, isn't it?
Nah, fuck that.
The joke is,
that's weird.
I always say I get pissed off when people use like the Marxist terminology of like, that the people who own the means of production are exploiting the worker, etc. The joke is NIP are the only ones who managed to do that somehow in CSGO. Everyone else, it's actually not really like that. Like actually players usually make out like bandits, get everything they want. They even break contract shit. Then also you got the scenario where then players use the public to go wherever they want and they break their contract. Normally the players get their way. NIP is the only one where they're just their fucking domain is just Mordor. You walk in the door and it's the stench of sulfur. You already have a fear of the eyes on you. Like, mate, you just enter an alternate reality when you join the team. And what's bizarre is, like, Hitcham Shaheen has to one day take responsibility. Mate, you're the only through line. And it's like this for years. Even when you get good players, it's like this. Like now this whole the advice thing's playing out. Like, why is this org so cursed?
Well, exactly. A curse would imply some sort of sinister external force, right? And the reality is the sinister external force is very fucking internal, because as you say, there's one name that just comes up time and time again. But he was there in 2015 when all this stuff happened. The CEO, Per Lillyfeld, carried the can. The org sort of bounced back. They did some other stuff with this. Then we had the Weezer scandal, right? Don't forget as well, by the way, never forget that when Fiflaren came out in fucking 2019 and said, I'm still owed money for what I did in that organization, and he did it on my podcast. What then happened was Weezer, who were angling to be the big, the rulers of the sandpit of esports, which, by the way, entirely funded and set up by ESL and prominent teams that played in ESL. NIP were founders of Weezer, and Hitcham Shaheen was on the board of Weezer.
There you go.
They called for an investigation from the ESIC and said, yeah, of course, listen, we'll be completely transparent. ESIC can investigate. By the way, you got 3 days to complete the investigation, motherfucker, if you don't. So Ian Smith came out and went, well,
he admitted he was pressured on that one. Yeah, I remember we talked about it.
Yeah. Remember, he came out and he said, well, look, I couldn't find anything. You had 3 days.
I know.
Think about how long they take now to do a fucking investigation. Exactly. Closer to 3 fucking
Plus,
years.
You just know that was some like Terry Gilliam shit where it was like, right, you've got 3 days, and then they just lead you down like this really long winding staircase. You just go into a massive room with filing cabinets, Rich, and half of them are just open. There's papers just flying around, and they go, you got 3 days to get to the bottom of it. And you're like, there's a million documents, and it's like, good luck. Start with A.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous.
And then at the end, this is the part I did blame ESIC for, though. We didn't find anything on investigation. You didn't do an investigation, you idiot. You have to complete it. It's called due diligence. Obviously, don't ask Nell what that means. He doesn't know.
Yep, true. So look, that 2% shit's weird. Whatever. Fuck it. Nip are nip. They're never not going to not be nip. And we're going to wait and see how this impacts on the players moving forward and whether CSPPA are going to wade in. Loads of stuff to come. So we'll move on from that now. Watch this space. We'll talk more about it in future. We'll get back to the challenger stage of the major because, as I said, loads of kind of little interesting storylines. Where should we go next? Who else was a fucking raging disappointment? I suppose. Is it worth even just throwing a stab in at Renegades? I had absolutely.
Oh, I have a reason for that. I'll give you an angle.
Go on.
This is what's mad, right? The reason I didn't pick. By the way, I won't do the fucking meme of the Brazilians like, you cost me that fucking coin. Because, by the way, spoiler, no matter what anyone says that you know this, I will never have my feelings be hurt by a prediction being wrong, not least because I've been through that hail of bullets a million times, haven't I? I've had 0-7. And also, by the way, I've also had it where I had a 75% rate over 30 tournaments. So basically, God of predictions, and I got no credit. So I know predictions are a fool's game that are only there to mock people. That's all they're there for.
Yeah.
They're never there to congratulate the winner because we all know predictions don't mean anything. They're only there to bash the one who doesn't get it. So I have to say this angle, right? I actually didn't pick Renegades as my 0-3, and here's the reason why. It seems like it's a bit of a reach, but I think it's real. Bearing in mind the other contenders are the likes of in IHC from Mongolia, who don't even play international tournaments, and we don't know any of them except like 2 of them. Bearing in mind, you had teams from CIS region or Kosovo. I've never even heard of a Kosovo player. It's like when Nico came along, there's a player from Bosnia, and they're good. This is mental. So these are the teams that historically you should definitely pick these for the 0-3. They're even the first majors. And so the reason I said I won't pick Renegades, and this is the last time I'll ever do this, boys. You have actually burned me, and I'm never. You're 0-3 every tournament until you prove otherwise now. And here's why. Because the fact that you literally speak English, there are even players who've been to tournaments because of you had IM Sydney, you've had these and because you speak English, that is an insane advantage over like a Chinese team, for example. You could be communicating. You could even talk to your boy Sponge. You could get his thoughts on the meta in Europe. You can find out who's strong in practice. There are a million angles through which you have an edge by being Australian. But man alive, that team can't beat anyone. They can't be anyone, mate.
The worst part, mate. The worst part was they did it in this, by the way, just boils like when players don't read the room, like and don't know how to do PR to their advantage. They literally tweeted like after the fucking thing, after they went out, basically saying like, "Oh yeah, well we didn't even practice. We couldn't. No, there wasn't any time. That was the." And it's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? How can you say this? Like, how can you think this makes it better? It's the World Championship. How can you publicly fucking say this? But Psycho basically said, like on Twitter,
pretty tenured player if people don't know, been on fucking ages.
Yeah,
we'll see a score, I think, right?
So mad surprised it was him who said it.
Yeah.
Well, he said super rough event from us, had 0 prac leading in and rule changes again, lacked the level of confidence, is what it is. GG's. And it's like, listen, mate, it's not is what it is. Like it's I don't know. You played in a region, you got to the major. Like, I get there was an awkward bit where they like had to fly and do a qualifier and then fly back, and that's fucking nightmare.
That sounds mental, yeah.
But also maybe just duck out on that qualifier if that's what it takes. This is like it's a world championship. To get through the challenger stage and be in the major for real, it's such a financial boon.
It's your whole career, basically.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you're just thinking about it from a money perspective, but also as well, that Renegades team, right? Loads of people, like, I would never have picked that 0-3. I would never.
Because there's even established players, like I said. They're not, that's the difference. Yeah. They actually have some things going in their favor. It's just, it doesn't show up in the game.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's sad because these guys have been around the block. Like, you're better than that. You owe that to yourself. You should never have said they didn't practice. Also, as well, by the way, this thing about role swaps. That
kills me, yeah.
That's a you thing.
I know. You chose that.
So
What
what
made you do that?
you've chose that just before the major when you know what your calendar looks like and you know you're gonna have no time to practice. Why the fuck would you do that? So, mate, I don't know if it was like a badly worded tweet or something, but the optics on that. Remember, as Americans will tell us, we do live in an optics culture, so I'm going to judge you based on the optics. It's fucking garbage. Like it's like really, really bad. Like I feel super sorry for the Australian fans because whatever iteration of Renegades they have, it always gets a massive pop. Like the Aussies, by the way, are one of the few fan bases that don't like break away and go and follow players. Renegades is the Australian
and
team.
they even support you if you shit, by the way.
Yeah,
For
the
real.
boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, the boys. It's everywhere.
Yep.
They deserve better. Like I very rarely say that about passionate fan bases, and the Australians, the Australian fan base has come at me before. You know, I've had a number of
Dick Stacey and all that bullshit. Yeah, of course.
Because I said I thought it was childish to try and slip a penis into the game. You know,
probably inspired Nell's fucking.
Yeah, no, it was me all along.
I know.
But you know, like it's what I will say about the Renegades fans is like it doesn't matter what five it is, they know it's going to be hard-working Aussies. And I'll also say as well, like, and I don't, you know me, I don't get too much into the cultural side of things, but also historically, Renegades has been an outlet for like real like. You know, think about Sponge and how he was a fucking plumber and how hard work, and it was the outlet. It was the outlet to take you to the next level and give you a platform to potentially achieve your dreams coming from that country. And now you've got players saying, "Well, we didn't even practice for it. Don't worry, we'll be back because we'll go through the fucking Asian Oceania qualifier again. We know we're good enough to do that." I don't know. It just left a nasty taste in my mouth. I thought, like at the end of it, and they didn't even look like they were trying. Honestly,
No,
they looked really bad.
Checked out. Yeah.
So I don't know because obviously we're now in the next stage. Those are like the challenger sort of stage storylines. I'll pick up on a couple of other little bits from like the major for real. And then, like you say, obviously we can talk about everything else once it ends. So look, the big one from this stage, which I want to get in and just get it out the way because it's current, is obviously G2 not making it through to the final 8. Finalists at Stockholm, not in the top 8 here in Antwerp. And, you know, despite making upgrades and everything else, and, you know, support staff and everything you could want at an org. And it seems to me that, you know, there is something a little bit off with G2. You know, the way they played, it was really weird. Like in the best of one, they had an overtime with Na'Vi. That can happen in the best of one. They should have won that, though. Then they had a 16-12 over Imperial. Really struggled. And by the way, that was at a period when no one was talking about Imperial.
No.
All the Forza Imperial stuff.
Yep.
What is it?
People had them 0-3 for Challenger. Yeah.
You know, no one was on board with that. And then they lost in overtime to Heroic. And obviously, Cadian popped off and said...
And that was obviously the fucking retweet gate or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Yeah. Which, by the way, listen, just on that note, right, quick sidebar. Oh, shit. Also, we didn't even talk about that 2% thing, did we? I said
right.
That.
Yeah, we can look back in that if you want.
Sorry, we'll look back at the end. So anyway, the Heroic 1917, Cadian popping off because Nico had retweeted a tweet from Lurpis saying a reminder that Cadian had cheated.
Basically, it's like Lurpis. It's like he thought we were doing the Justice League again.
Yeah.
He saw I had the bat signal, so I came in with the fallen one. He was like, all right, we're doing that thing where we're the people who just have a different emotional frame and we just call out the most unpopular possible. Like, it's almost like he did do that. And then obviously, the real problem is, you all know Nico. Even at the best of times, he's a slightly salty motherfucker, isn't he? So, but here's the thing. If he was mad at Glaive, thinking Glaive legit was cheating against him, if he knows you cheated, he ain't going to just go, I don't have an opinion. He's not going to do a Mourinho like, I cannot speak or I will be fine. Like, Nico's just going to retweet that shit. Yeah. And also, by the way, there's another thing, Nico. It's a like is one thing. Sometimes people don't notice a like. Retweet on your timeline, doesn't it? Like, you know, like, fucking hell, mate. You're right in a way, but fucking hell.
Yeah,
you did make a run for your own back there.
I know.
And by the way, one thing I hate in esports, it's one of my biggest pet peeves ever, because they were doing it to me with Fallen, obviously. It goes like this. Morally, you've been shit to me. Yeah, but I won the game, so wasn't I right? Like, what is the connection? What would the connection ever be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the connection? I don't get it.
So, I mean, look, the heroic stuff that came out, was crazy because obviously Katie and the community can't make up their mind how they feel about this guy. Like 1 minute he's a cheat, the next minute he's love his passion. Then
I should actually do him a favor because I like him. I should tell him next time it gets bad, I'll just come at you, and then when you slap me and go no you, it'll just win all the crowd back over, and I'll get you back. I'll sort of put you over WWE style, mate. Yeah, because you just need a bigger cunt. Basically, he's got the bigger cunt problem, hasn't he? If he's the cunt, then he's fucked. He can't even be right, by the way. But if the bigger cunt's involved, because a lot of people don't like Nico as well, you notice, they think he's a bit sour. Guess what, Nico? They've sort of nailed your character a bit there, mate. Patterns actually play out. So the problem is, I noticed, yes, Cadian is only the hero if he is the bat that you're using to beat Nico's legs in. But if it's just about Cadian alone, fuck Cadian, get off the scene, don't ever come back. I know they're so mad ready, aren't they? They are the absolute worst. They are just the Roman crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're the worst of all time, aren't they? I know.
So you end up in a situation where, like, because Cadian popped off and fucking said, like, he's calling him talentless, which also, come on, mate.
I know what that's like. My favorite my favorite insult of all time, because this just isn't even good trash talk, was when Freakazoid was telling Simple, "Your aim sucks," and you never do that online. It's like, bro, it's Simple. Come on. I know. Same thing. It's like, pick anything else. Call him, like, say he's got shit personality. Team that's but again, you can't say Nico's talentless. Like, listen, if you want to trigger him, it's sort of good banter, but it's just so whack as a line, isn't it? Like, you just you know what, that bloody Nico checks notes. He's bloody tell what he hasn't got no bloody talent.
Whatever. But anyway, like, I mean, put it this way. Look, CS is like almost like the last fucking bastion of that kind of level of trash talk.
It is,
because it was always a bit embarrassing when they used to do the pop-offs, as they called them, in Call of Duty and fighting games, because it was so contrived.
Look
at my bank account. Look at my bank account. Right, because it was so contrived that it was done. It was done for the crowd. It wasn't like coming from a genuine place. And it's the same with the fighting games one, when they're like just stood over you screaming when they went.
I know, it's bugging you. Come here.
Yeah, it's done. It's done for effect. But that came from a very real place, in a very real tense situation for a team who are said heroic, obviously, are beleaguered. G2 are expected to beat them. And so, I thought the trash talk was fantastic. And of course, as always, you can always rely on Carlos to handle that shit like a G. Carlos came out and said, Cadian probably had adrenaline coursing through his veins. I like this guy. So
sure, Nico loves that, by the way.
I know, yeah.
I know, no one thought of that angle either.
Boss.
Exactly. I love it so much. Though. I know, exactly. That's good, actually.
Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it?
That's what a G Carlos is, by the way.
I know, yeah.
He fucking G checks Nico. That's all you need to know. And reckless, but he's actually just a G, and he's just fucking certified.
Yeah.
Fair play.
So anyway, you had all that drama, and obviously at that point they were in the Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
And I watched the game with Yanko. Obviously, Yanko was friends with Nico, was sort of rooting for G2. But you'll notice he wasn't. Here's the difference, though, Richard. You notice even though he rooted for them, he the whole time didn't sound certain about them. The whole time he sounded like he knew they could fucking fall apart anymore, which I'll tell you what, spoiler, this is a pure speculation, but I know people. That infers to me that's probably the sense of Nico. That's probably the sense of some of the players. I'm hearing rumblings there will be cuts after this, mate. That this might not even be crazy.
Well, then this was built to, when you make this team, like, we're going to have a couple of years, a lot like, shit, battle stations, cut everyone. Like, so I don't know, mate. I think this is collapsed in itself.
Yeah, I mean, listen, so
everyone even forgot this angle, mate. Notice in G2, we always forget this. I do. I keep forgetting they have X-Stars as a coach. I keep only looking at the players. I'm like, is Alexi B doing a good job? Monacy, he's young. Hunter's pretty good. Still, Nico, is he good? I keep forgetting, like, X-Stars is another person. Like, what's going on there, mate? Because this team's looking really fucking...
Tell me...
They're the most coin flip team I've ever seen. You flip the coin, top team in the world. You flip the coin, they're like the 15th best team in the world. It's mental.
Tell me what you think about this quote. Right. So one of the guys from my community wanted to like sort of augment some content and discussion for the No Majors Club, and they speak French. And so they went through all of the French speaking interviews from the major and translated them.
Ooh, come on then.
Right. And so these, just if people want to verify this to make sure.
I can tell this is going to be ominous as fuck. And
yeah.
there's like lots to read into or something. So come on.
So this is on the 1PVCS.
Oh, it's Nell's site, yeah.
So it's Nell's site. So you can go and verify that we're not making this up if you really are that way inclined and you're a hate viewer or whatever. But anyway, this chap in my community kindly did this. And so Xtaz did an interview with 1PV after the G2 Spirit game. And this was the quote in that interview. He said, "We have made progress since January, but not enough. We're not in a good pace of progress, in my opinion. There are different visions in this team, so we are trying to find something in common to be on the same page. Compared to my vision, they are very far from mine. So we try to incorporate some things little by little. On CT, it works. On T, it's more complicated. I gave Alexi..."
Oh, my Lord. I can already see where I'm going with this. Come on, keep setting it up. You hit me with so many fucking potential like openers already. I know.
Yeah.
Come on.
I gave Alexi a lot of room at the beginning.
Name and checking him, of course.
And then little by little, I've tried to improve our game. There are some things where we have not progressed, others just a little bit. But I would say after 4 months together, it is insufficient.
Here's the problem. Because I noticed when he phrased it there, assuming there's no translation error, of course, think about this, right? He actually almost, I think, has made it too explicit. I don't think he was as vague as he thought he was. He's almost done like the fucking smoothie, like the bald whatever. Like, there's only one bald guy. But yeah, so basically, here's the scenario here. If you go by what he says, there's disagreements or voices in the team, right? Spoiler, the immediate obvious one, Nico and Lexi B, maybe. They're two people who have very strong opinions about how the team's played. Plus, who the fuck else would it be? 16-year-old Monesty doesn't talk, just shoots people in the head. Jack's just a cool guy, and Hunter is just a fucking chill guy. Like, what do I do, Nico? You tell me, mate. So who could it be even? Narrow it down. That one's pretty obvious to me. So there's already what I'm wondering about. If Nico's Nico, does Alexi B get his ass told marching orders? Then you have one where he went out of his way to explicitly claim it's separate. Him and Alexi B have got different visions. Well, then there's another one, mate. Then my question becomes, does that mean Xtaz is going? Is Xtaz saying Alexi B's got? Suddenly, this team starts to look like it could be completely different very soon.
And look, it's worth pointing out, just on individual performances in terms of playing, Munazi, hands down, I felt good. Best player for G2 at this major.
I wasn't really disappointed the whole time he's been in G2 to me, mate. He's actually someone that you would think the 16-year-old Russian kid would be the one that should be doing the worst. He's just playing his game, mate. He clearly is going to be a very good player one day, isn't he?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, certainly, he was the top player on a dysfunctional, team that should have been destined to play in the top 8. He carried them over the line in some games as well. He was actually, I think, the 10th player overall at that stage.
Fucking hell, that's pretty legit. Yeah. So here's the thing, though. I have a question for you, right? People will know this because he actually paid the money to that charity. And I also noticed, I suspect finally someone had a fucking word. Maybe even my mate Carlos, because he's smart enough to do that. He knows, unlike the rest of the morons in the industry, if you actually don't want your life to be bad by me pointing out all your fuck-ups, don't keep coming at me so hard. The more you come at me, I'll always bounce that energy back off to you. And I'll put in extra effort finding out. I'll go and ask your teammate. I'll dig. I actually have the skills to do the part I don't do in my job. Just not my style. And you're fucking doing it all anyway. I tell you, I pass anything I get to you. So here's my problem with the Nico scenario. I don't have an active beef with Nico right now. Like, look, I've no doubt if I went and looked, he probably liked all those really simple tweets trying to wreck me. Like, I got him finally. It's like, you've been a twat to me 50 million times. I've won that one already. I've owned you. I made you give the money to the charity, so fuck you. But here's my question, right? The real concern I have with Nico is this. I always give him, on the one hand, a little bit of leeway I don't give other stars, which is he comes from Bosnia, a region which will never, I mean, it's got Kosovo now, I guess, in terms of the whole region. Maybe they do have a half-decent team, but the logic was going to be he can never be on a team from his region because they're not good enough. So he already is playing at a disadvantage. So I'll give you leeway like I gave Guardian that. But my issue is this. I've seen too many teams now. The only team ever I've seen basically that operated with Nico, world-class God player, and everything else about the team's good was the FaZe Clan versions he was in with Carrigan. Every other team, you get an option. The team is dysfunctional and Nico is unfucking playable. He is so good, no one can play him. He is so good, people start saying he is better than Simple when Simple hasn't even dropped off. That shows you he is a godlike skilled player. But there just seems to be this issue where he has teams that he has some pieces in, he's not quite as good, or he had, like, this is making me start to think, like, it's not all you, it's never all you, but there's something with Nico. I don't know what it is, mate. And also, have you noticed this vibe? Because it's also the problem, the aforementioned, the cold Zeras and the Shoxes have run into himself. I don't want to be the IGL. I just can't have anyone else IGL for me, essentially.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, we've said it many times. There's an alternate timeline where Nico and Carrigan embrace a Neo and Taz like relationship.
I always thought that they should basically have been Shaq and Kobe. It's like, we don't like each other, but you know what? Fuck it. Let's just smash the league, mate.
Yeah.
Why play against each other? Let's just smash them.
Once the game's over and we've had a fucking shower, like, I'm not calling you up for beers or nothing, but see you at practice. And, you know, it's like, I wish more teams could have that professional relationship where it's like, listen, we don't vibe with each other. We're very different people, but you know what? Together we can fucking make it work. And you don't see that in esports. Generally, people want to be like a fucking anime. They want to be friends. They want this, you know. And classically, you know, we've had things like, you know, Shox and MBK never could get along. And it's just like, it's just silly. It's just really, really silly because, like, I agree with you. I think if Carrigan and Nico could have buried the hatchet, probably that duo.
It's the what if.
Yeah, that's one of the big what
ifs. It really is, because
Oh.
people don't get it. It's the what if that unravels the whole esports sweater. The Astralis era comes right on the back of them splitting up. Then you have all this period where you had like the Vitality rise up and then FaZe Clan's irrelevant. Like every single storyline calls into question if you do that, if you run that back. Because like I say, they could have, those are the two best positions in the world and they had both nailed, the in-game leader and superstar player. Every other team struggles. Like, you notice in NIP now, they don't have the IGL. In other teams, you have the IGL, but you don't have the start. Like, it's so rare you get two together. And unfortunately, when you do, you've got to understand, like we're saying, this isn't like, how do you feel today? I'm not feeling like playing with him. That's irrelevant, mate. You've got to look at the macro picture and go, what is happening in my career if I don't do this, you know? Because people in sports, that's another classic thing. You have the same thing happens. This guy leaves a year too early. Like, it's the most tragic thing ever when the window closes. And Nico's, and here's the other reason it's a killer, because both of them were right in a window to win another major. It's like, mate, how many could you have stacked? Yeah. How many could you guys have stacked?
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, Nico didn't play lights out really at all at this major. Like I say, Munazi was he was actually 9th. I just checked it, not 10th. Zimu was 10th. But he was G2's best player statistically. The LXCB question is coming up, and it's coming up in the community. It's coming up with the pundits. It's coming up on social media. And, you know, he had some horror show performances just in terms of his individual level. You know, he was played really poorly against Imperial. He had a nightmare map against Outsiders. And if you go and look, and again, HLTV ratings could be deceptive, obviously, especially for IGLs. But just to put it in context, his last 20 matches played, he's had, hang on, I'll tell you.
I think his stats are terrible if I know.
Yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positive 1.00 or above performances out of 20 maps played, you know, and obviously on the new rating, that's real fucking bad.
Yes. That's even why he's in the hot seat, in my opinion, because the problem is, I don't think he was brought into this team to frag like Nexa did. His job was be the IGL, and you've got Nico, so win the tournament. And so the problem he has as well, by the way, is Nico being in a slump and reflects on him. It might not, maybe for all we know, Nico's in a slump, but sadly, it seems the moment XCB walked through the door, Nico never been the same player.
Yeah, and so now we're left with the question where it's like, look, here's my read on it. I know G2 fans are going to be disappointed, but you know, the reality is you can't fuck with this team. It hasn't even really had its time. Like, for me, it has to be a long-term project. If you jump the gun and you replace an IGL now, I mean, who are you getting? Yanko, for example, suggested getting Apex.
Oh, that's an interesting move. I mean, what if they obviously switch to Megas or something? Yeah.
Because he fucks with X-Taz. And
I could see that, yeah.
You know.
And I even think, by the way, if you know, the reason that's not even a terrible call is I also have the vibe. This is another thing about Nico, because I get the sense he wants his game to be very comfortable. I think Nico likes very simple Counter-Strike that you allow the boys to sort of do what they're doing. So the problem is, I don't think he wants a tactical line. So if Apex, that's even the read on Apex from the team that he's in now. It's like, it's just simple CS. It's like, hit this site, let's all go in. I think Nico would fuck with that there. I could see that being a good move.
Yeah, and maybe.
Oh, Andy's been in G2 before.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So maybe, right? Maybe. Okay. But I've got to say, I wouldn't bite the bullet yet and make the move. It seems to be a little bit premature. But, obviously there's going to be a lot of ill feeling. And I'll also say in G2, you're not going to get a lot of chances. Carlos is one of the few owners where it's not about social media engagement or merch sales or sponsorship deals or content creation or having a fucking clothing website and or it's not about that. He wants to win trophies for real, like
especially in CS:GO where he doesn't have the major. I know he's super horny for it. Yeah.
So maybe he does bite the bullet. I think that would be a little bit harsh. The thing I also worry about is from listening to Xtaz's interviews. By the way, that wasn't the only interview he gave to 1PV where he addressed like how things were a little bit off kilter in the team. It does make me think that maybe Alexi B can't. I don't think he's ever had to work with as strong a coach as Xtaz before. Remember at Vitality, Xtaz had complete fucking autonomy, complete fucking authority, could do what he wanted, including, by the way, dropping the IGL in the middle of a fucking tournament and telling Shocks to take over because he felt Apex's mentality wasn't right. And there are few coaches in World Counter-Strike that can do things like that. And so for me, maybe Xtaz and Alexi, maybe there's something there in the relationship. Who knows? Maybe Xtaz is the issue. Maybe he's not vibing with the players. You can't rule that out. Again, strong authoritative figure. Maybe there's some egos. Maybe people are catching feelings. All I know is that G2 roster. This is appalling. They're not in the top 8. They should have been challenging for the major, and this is another one that's going to get away. And crucially, obviously, for Nico, like windows close quicker than you fucking think.
Agreed.
So I don't know, man, but this to me was the biggest disappointment and the biggest story of the major so far.
And I even think the other interesting part is this. Look, I do very much doubt that at this point in time, because the problem is, who would you get instead? I don't think there's any chance Nico was getting cut. But I'll tell you what, Nico, here's the problem. There was zero chance last year because you were amazing. So it was like Nico was definitely in. But I tell you what, you won't get your way if you don't start performing. Eventually, you have to put up the performance. So one day, he'll be the only person in history to do it, but Carlos would be the only person to cut Nico if it doesn't work out, by the way. Not now. I'm talking about if say he makes a change. Let's hypothetical. Let's say Alexi B is the issue. Nico doesn't fuck with his calling style. Out goes Alexi B. You bring in Apex. Pick a player that you're bringing in that Nico likes. Tell you what, Nico, you better be back to God mode now. Because if you aren't, I'd myself be like, look, Carlos, he is a genius, but if you can't get him to work, let someone else deal with that problem, mate. You just take another player that's really good. Remember, you are G2. People keep forgetting they are the team that they can just spend as much money as they want. I'll also say this. I know I'm not doing this to totally bag because it was a side comment, but I did notice Carlos went out of his way to address that, like, we didn't want Rops because he might have had role overlap. You know what? Rops is pretty fucking good. He is really fucking good. And then FaZe wouldn't have him. So I'm just saying that is there. Also, just because it's another team like this has to be another team that enters the Yekindar lottery. You have to get that checkbook out, mate, and you have to see if you can tell him a number high enough that he comes to this team.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd
be thinking about it, certainly.
I'd love to see it. Obviously, remember, he has a lot of value in the eyes of Na'Vi, speaks Russian.
For sure.
Is Latvian, so doesn't
crucially is not Russian. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Speaks Russian, but crucially isn't Russian with the CEO's current way of doing things. And there's no way that team is staying together, which is something obviously we'll explore on the next episode. But I also agree, Yekindar right now, there's a reason he's going on HLTV confirmed and doing their segments on the major. The motherfucker knows.
He's smart, He's smart.
Yeah. He's got his head switched on. Good kid. So, look, I think that's a good stopping point. So let's wrap it up. Obviously, first episode of Revenge of By the Numbers. This is going to be its new home for the podcast moving forward. Patreon doesn't exist anymore. So there's no viewer questions like there used to be. But maybe we'll come to some arrangement where we can still pick them up. I thought they were a big part of the show. I always loved doing that stuff. Maybe it'll be like a monthly special video, Revenge by the Numbers.
We'll see if we can figure out something
Q&A.
to still get to reward them and do something cool.
Yeah, because obviously...
Maybe, like you say, maybe it's just viewer questions, the show.
Yeah, exactly. We just do a show where every month we collate all the viewer questions, maybe, and yeah. But obviously, Patreon has gone. Thanks to all the people who supported us for 192 episodes of the Return of By the Numbers. Obviously means a lot to us, and we hope you continue to watch the show and be part of our journey moving forward at our new home. More about that later as well, because we've got some big announcements in the pipeline. But for now, you've had your fucking fill, so go away. We'll see you again sometime soon.
Chris, is Mark still into the picture? Oh, I'm still very much in the round. Oh, Chris, he's found 3. It's down to a 2-on-2. Chris, can he close this with an ace? Oh my God!
He gives him a chance at least, and this CZ kill could be everything. Finally, Zeus!